Hello, and we're live.
All right, welcome everybody to episode 3 of the Worldwide Wednesday podcast.
Episode 3 of season 2,
I'm your host, Sovereign,
and I'm Shiny.
and I hope I can make it today because I'm kind of tired, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired too. Had a rough time waking up today.
Yeah, but we're here. We've got stuff that we want to talk about. We've been pretty excited since we don't have to do recaps of stuff we've missed over the past few weeks. So
Yeah, we're coming in fresh, and I want to start out with let's talk about Book of Boba Fett, episode 5, and basically Mandalorian season 3 pilot.
yeah, that was very weird. I'm not gonna lie. I was prepared to complain about the pacing before I watched episode 5,
Yeah.
and now my feelings are much stronger about the sentiment, not gonna lie.
Yeah, so this episode on its own, like as its own separate episode, I think was great. I thought it was phenomenal.
On its own, if this was a Mandalorian episode, I individually as an episode, I'm still gonna complain about its pacing because there are obviously parts we can cut out. Of course, we got little like cute interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like they didn't need to bring in the Jawas, but it came with great character interactions, even though it did bog the pacing down a bit.
It was only for like a minute.
I mean, the whole shipbuilding scene was probably upwards of like 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, but the shipbuilding's for character development.
It is, but it shouldn't be in a Boba Fett episode.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. In the context of the Book of Boba Fett, the series, this episode is, the plot does eventually move forward, but given that we only have 7 episodes and we're 5 episodes in, and we have not really seen, like we kind of have the battle lines, but we haven't seen Boba Fett really interact with the head of the Pikes this time around.
Yeah.
Like, he interacted with a Pike head back when he was with the Tuskens, but he has not interacted with whoever's leading the Pikes now. And so I kind of feel like we have a bit of a disconnect between our main character and what is supposed to be the main antagonist, and this episode could have been used to, kind of bring us closer with Boba Fett having like more people coming in, and so that's when head of the Pikes would come in and say, "I see you're bringing in muscle. You're trying to encroach on me," and the whole typical bad guy tries to intimidate good guy type thing.
But instead, of course, we decide to bring in the Mandalorian again, which I mean, I'm not opposed to. He did great in this episode as far as a character.
Yeah,
but it didn't progress the plot at all. Yes, it progressed his character arc from the last series, but was it necessary
in this show?
Yeah,
that's the big thing. One thing that I do want to mention is that it completely flew over our heads last episode that the ending scene was about the Mandalorian, because they played his theme at the ending, and it just completely flew over our heads, and we just failed to mention that. But I actually thought at the beginning of this episode that he was already contacted and was like killing people on behalf of Boba Fett, because the bounty that he was after is the same race as one of the crime heads of Mos Espa. So I thought when he was going through that meatpacking plant, I thought he was actually, killing off like people that were like neutral to Boba, but I thought that would have made not much sense considering he just promised no violence towards them.
I mean, at the end of the day, maybe it wouldn't even matter because this was just a scene to introduce him back into this show.
Yeah.
So it really didn't matter if it had any connection at all. The fact that they put connection in to begin with was a nice touch, but that wasn't really the purpose of that scene.
Yeah, it was more just to establish what Din has been up to since the end of season 2.
Or that even the show plans to bring him back and let him stick in this show.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think they did a good job, but it kind of overstayed its welcome a bit.
A bit. I am happy, though, that we did get to see his character development, and I'm more happy to see more development about the Mandalorians. So One thing that's been like teased a lot, but hasn't been really shown except for at the end of Clone Wars season 7 and in what I believe is Rebels season 3 and 4, where they talk about the Empire and Mandalore. And obviously, in season 7 of Clone Wars, we see the beginning of the occupation with the Siege of Mandalore, which coincided with Revenge of the Sith. And then we see with in Rebels, we see Gar Saxon, who was made basically head of Mandalore, even though the most of the Mandalorian tribes were disparate from each other. He was made head of Mandalore, and then Bo Katan ended up getting the Darksaber from Satine, which she got it as a gift from Satine because she didn't beat Satine in combat to obtain the Darksaber, which then ties into what we saw in Mandalorian season 2, where she mentions how she's lost control and that the Empire razed Mandalore to the ground. And now we see this with the Armorer, where she's saying because Bo Katan didn't get it through combat, that she cursed Mandalore.
Right. Yeah, which I do like that they're trying to expand, like not expand the lore, but bring some of the more obscure lore that like fans who don't watch the any of the animated shows are aware of.
Yeah.
Like, of course, the was it the Night of a Thousand Tears?
Yeah, the Night of a Thousand Tears, it was is actually not shown in Rebels because the Night of a Thousand Tears takes place post Rebels during the era of the prequels, not the of the original trilogy. Because Rebels is pre the original trilogy.
And then of course and
Is
Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett are set in the era of the New Republic.
Yeah. So basically the Night of a Thousand Tears takes place at some point between the between A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, I would say. It takes place somewhere in that time period where Bo Katan became queen. She tried to unite the houses of Mandalore, but she couldn't because she didn't win the Darksaber via combat, and thus they were completely, ill prepared to deal with Imperial retribution, and they got basically glassed. And I want to say that the scene of where they showed the TIE bombers blowing up not Concord Dawn, blowing up I'm forgetting the name of the Mandalorian capital city, but they blew it up, and then seeing the K series droids with the probe droids going through and murdering the survivors like Terminators was really well done. And I think that's also really good because the director of Bryce Dallas Howard, she was in Terminator Salvation, so it's probably a little bit of a nod to the fact that she was in the Terminator series.
Which, when I saw her directing credit, I was kind of surprised because when I see that name, I think, oh, the really bland romantic interest from the Jurassic World series. But to see her having directing credit and the episode being directed really, really well, like
Yeah,
and not only that, that she's directed two Mandalorian episodes already.
yeah, this was not her first foray into directing for Star Wars. She directed Mandalorian Episode 4 as well as Mandalorian Episode 11. So she's worked with Disney and she's worked with Lucasfilm for the New Republic era of Star Wars, and she's been doing pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
Fun fact: she was also Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, I mean, because the big reason why I'm so astounded by that is because I only think of her as an actress, and before that, she didn't even have many directing roles. I think we only saw like five or six other directing credits in her IMDb profile.
Yeah, she mainly does shorts and a miniseries.
Yeah, she did a mini series for Vanity Fair, I believe.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, credit goes out to her.
yeah, she did a phenomenal job. One thing that I do want to talk about is the mirrored arcs that Boba Fett and Din are going through it right now, in the sense that Boba has lived his life as a bounty hunter. He's come to see that the life is just not worth it, and he's much better suited being a leader, taking over and ruling with respect, not through fear, and, giving up the bounty hunter lifestyle.
You see a correlation between the two?
Yes, because for Din is currently a bounty hunter, living his life, but he's lost, like how Boba was. He's working jobs and he's doing well, but he's not particularly satisfied with his life. He craves attachment and he craves social activity now more than ever, especially after bonding with Grogu. And I think this is supposed to lead up to an arc where, like Boba, he will rise into his own leadership role, which I believe is becoming the Mandalore of Mandalore. He will unite the clans of Mandalore and he will lead the Mandalorians into a new golden age,
Yeah.
basically taking the role that Boba Fett had in the Legends continuity. And I
So
think that's the parallel of the two.
okay. Do you think that because I pretty much am starting to see like an arc develop of him. I mean, this was started back in season two,
Yeah.
but a character arc of him rejecting the like paleo ways of the his Mandalorian
Yeah, the
clan.
Children of the Watch.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, remember back in season two, Bo Katan says that the Children of the Watch
yeah,
are a cult.
that's exactly what my mind immediately went to.
Yeah, they're like religious zealots. They're a cult, especially with the no taking off helmets, which is very strange considering all Mandalorians we've seen being have been taking off their helmets, whether
Like ignoring all the TV shows we've even
it's in
seen
the live action with Jango Fett,
exactly
but it's in the live action with Jango Fett and the TV shows. Every Mandalorian takes off their helmets, and we even see it again in Mandalorian season two,
like
where
hell
they take it off.
like you see it like in episode. It was episode two, right?
Yeah, we see it in episode two.
We see it in. I've seen clips of Rebels, so I know that it is in Rebels.
It's in Clone Wars as well, and if you really want to extrapolate, every clone has taken like we see clones taking off their helmets all
Like,
the time, and they are Mandalorians.
well, I don't think that they're like religious Mandalorians.
No, but well. Once again, not all Mandalorians are religious.
Yeah,
So like clones are
well, I guess that's
Mandalorians.
right because technically, Jango Fett doesn't fall into the same clan as
Yeah, no, his clan is he falls in the clan of Jaster Miro, who in Legends was the leader of the true Mandalorians that faced off against Tar Vizsla. No, Tor Vizsla, different than Tar Vizsla, the Jedi. He was faced off against Tor Vizsla's Death Watch, and it led to a massive civil war. And it actually ended with Tor calling the Jedi Order to attack the true Mandalorians, framing them as terrorists. And Dooku, who as a Jedi showed up, and him and his team of Jedi defeated the Mandalorians, except for Jango, who then went and killed several Jedi barehanded and impressed Dooku, which led to Dooku hiring him during the events of Attack of the Clones because he knew him as a formidable warrior. But that's all Legends continuity.
yeah, but so going forward, I God, I'm starting to see like the same like criticisms that I had towards Hawkeye about not being able to like build a plot up until like the last two episodes,
Yeah.
and it's especially apparent here because I do think that the flashbacks were the best part of the earlier episodes of Boba Fett, but now we're to the point in the show where it's all coming to a head,
Mm-hmm.
and the lack of development of the main plot line has led to the plot's kind of aimless right now.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to mention, though, is that everything that happened in this episode is taking place concurrently with everything that happened last episode.
Yes.
Because the cruiser that he gets off of at Mos Eisley.
It's the exact same one where the muscle of the Pike Syndicate come off of.
Exactly. So this episode is taking place concurrently with episode 4. So there is a bit of justification as to why we didn't see the plot move forward, and that's because this is happening at the same time as the main plot.
Right. Which is a neat touch, but it only hinders the plot movement.
Yeah. The overall narrative structure, I would say, would have benefited from having the plot move forward with with an episode moving forward with a conflict.
Honestly, I'm gonna say if this was a 10 episode series, I
This
wouldn't.
would have been fine.
This would have been completely fine. I would not have any
Oh yeah, if this
complaints.
was a 10 episode series, I think we'd be fine.
But this is a 7 episode series, and we're 2 episodes away from the finale.
Exactly. And that's kind of where the problem is that, which I don't know. I don't know why Disney has been allergic to just going full on just 10 episode series for a lot of their shows. Like with Marvel, they haven't been doing 10 episodes for a lot of them.
The only ones that I can think of are like What If, and that was only
That was 9.
9
But it was
episodes.
supposed to be 10. It was supposed to be 10.
Yeah, that's my point. But yeah, not because we usually get like anywhere from 6 to 8 episodes.
Yeah.
Because I think Loki and WandaVision were 8. Hawkeye was 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's they really do need to let their arms like stretch out a bit with these episode length or amount of episodes that they dedicate to a show.
Yeah, because The Mandalorian season 1 and 2, they were both 10 episodes.
They were 10 episode series.
Yeah, and I think that worked perfectly for pacing. So it's really sad to see them regress and go to 7 episodes for this. Like, I really hope for future Disney Plus series they go
Especially
with a 10 episode format, or they do have to extend the runtime of an episode. But I do think it's better to just do 10 episodes.
Oh yeah, especially because once you get to 50-minute episodes, you really start to feel the runtime.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
I definitely think, because in my opinion, Star Wars works best when it's serialized compared to being movies. Like I think Star Wars works best when it's TV shows, when it's comic books, when it's novels, when it's video games. I think that's when Star Wars' world and narrative really comes to
I
life.
mean, think about it. Over the past 10 years, the 2 most recent years have been the best Star Wars content we've got.
Yeah, pretty much. I
Yeah.
mean, well, no, because over the past 10 years, we had Star Wars The Clone Wars, which was phenomenal. And you still haven't watched it like the fucking heathen you are.
All right.
But
You know what I mean, like in the eyes of
yes,
the mainstream fan.
do you not know how popular Star Wars The Clone Wars was?
God
That shit was everywhere!
damn. All right.
George Lucas was pouring his personal funds into that show. But yes, I know what you mean.
He keeps attacking me because I haven't watched the show yet.
Yes, you need to watch Star Wars The Clone Wars. You need to watch Star Wars Rebels, and you need to watch Star Wars The Bad Batch.
I will not watch Rebels.
You need to watch Rebels because Rebels is important for the lore moving forward.
I've only watched the 2 good scenes in Rebels, and that's it. And that's all I will watch.
No. Because Mandalorian Season 3 is definitely going to touch on the plot lines that were left off by Rebels. Rebels, listen, I'll tell you this. Rebels is like Star Wars The Clone Wars when it first started out. Season 1 and a bit of Season 2 was very childish, but once they were established, they were able to go way deeper, lose the kid friendliness, and really get to the nitty gritty of the narrative and really explore all aspects of Star Wars. I really think that once you get past the first season of Rebels, you start to see, wow, this is actually really good storytelling.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, enough about Rebels. Back to Mandalorian. I did kind of want to see Din mention the fact that the Children of the Watch are a cult. He never brought it up to Paz Vizsla or the Armorer.
Yeah.
It's like other Mandalorians take off their helmets. Like, I don't know why he never mentioned that.
Yeah, it's well, I don't really think it's something you should say out loud. Like you really shouldn't say, "Oh yeah, we're like I know you're I know you run a cult." Like
Yeah.
I don't really think it's something you should say to like higher ups in the cult.
Yeah. But then again, it's currently a cult of 3 people. That's less a cult and more like a glorified book club.
Fair.
So I do kind of wish he did bring up the fact that it's a cult, especially because he already brought up Bo-Katan. you know?
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention is when she melted down the Beskar spear. That also made me very suspicious of the armorer because, like, Bo-Katan and Boba Fett have both seen Din with the Beskar spear, and none had any objections to it,
Yeah.
which leads me to believe that the destroying of the Beskar spear was less about, um, you know, it's a danger to all Mandalorians, and more like it's a danger to me. Because Din is pretty good with the spear. He beat Moff Gideon, who was a non-force wielder that was able to wield the darksaber, which isn't something everyone can do. As evidenced in this episode,
Yeah, because
Din absolutely struggles to use the darksaber.
because as he said in the episode, the weight kept getting greater and greater. And of course, me not knowing anything about the Darksaber, it is implied through the episode to those who have not watched it as well that it pulls from, like, it takes mental fortitude rather than physical fortitude too.
It's a lightsaber. The darksaber is a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Think of it, it's literally just a lightsaber, except that it's black. So it is a lightsaber. So all the training that would come for a Jedi to use a lightsaber applies to the darksaber.
Okay, so I guess we only, like, outside of Clone Wars and Rebels, we only see Jedi wielding lightsabers, so that's nothing that's ever been brought up outside of those.
Yeah. I mean, in some what is it? In the comics, Boba Fett has a lightsaber, but it's a last resort, and he pulled it on Darth Vader and absolutely got his shit rocked.
Yeah.
Because once again, force wielders versus non-force wielders with lightsabers, no. Hell, non-force wielders with a lightsaber versus non-force wielders with lightsabers, the ones without are probably going to win too.
Yeah.
Din was just lucky he had a Beskar spear that he was good with. But to wrap it back up, I think the destruction of the spear was more of a way the armorer can passively keep power over Din, because the Children of the Watch is the only family he knows. And so part of me feels that because it's a cult, it pulls him back in. He feels aimless. He feels like he has you know, no identity outside of,
And that further
he has no identity outside of
and
the
that
cult.
further emphasizes your point that they share they share the same character arc.
Yeah. And so I really think that in Mandalorian Season 3, we are going to see Din reunite the Mandalorian clans. He's going to confront the Children of the Watch, and he will bring Mandalore under his rule. And I do hope, if that is the case, I do hope we see Sabine Wren from Star Wars Rebels appear, because she was integral to the first liberation of Mandalore. So there's that. There was one other thing that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. Did you want to bring up the small little continuity thing that you caught while watching the episode?
Yes, so there were several continuity things that I just absolutely love to see. For one, we saw Beggar's Canyon again, back
Yes.
from Star Wars Episode 1.
Which, of course, was to give Din the opportunity to test out his new ship,
Which was perfect.
which was a perfect nod.
He does the exact same route that Anakin does during the pod race. The fact that Din's new starfighter is a Naboo N1 starfighter, also from the Phantom Menace, is really cool. The Arabesh on it, unfortunately, is not the same as the one Anakin used, so it's not the exact same starfighter, but it is really cool to see it again. One thing I also noticed is when he uses the sublight thrusters, it not only gives the same sound effect, but it's the same visual as when the Naboo, what's it called? When the Naboo cruisers use their sublight thrusters. Same sound effect, same visual effect, and I thought that was a really great nod to continuity. Trying to think if there were any other nods that I caught.
There was the one that you caught from the Mandalorian. when he was testing the ship in space.
Yes. So the other one is that the New Republic officer that stops him, I forget his name, but he is also from The Mandalorian. He was in Mandalorian season 2. He was the one that saved Din and Grogu from, freezing to death and getting devoured by space worms, lizards, creatures,
Yeah,
things.
that was the whole episode where they were trying to protect the that one species, which completely passed my mind. The mother protecting her eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah, it was really cool.
I think before we end this little segment, definitely we should give it some more praise because the directing was still good. It's just the the idea of this episode doesn't really fall into this series.
Yeah. Um, I do want to give praise to the one take in the beginning of the episode, which is when Din leaves the meatpacking area, goes up the escalator, goes through the club, talks to the people he got the bounty for, goes back out, goes down the escalator, all in one take. Really well shot. Really
Yes.
liked it. No cuts, or if there were cuts, there were stealth cuts, but it was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also really did like the fight choreography for the first fight that we saw because it really shows that, yeah, no, if you don't wield the Force, lightsabers are not easy to use. They're hard as hell to
Yeah,
use.
and that's shown again in the little training sequence he gets with the lightsaber as well.
Yeah, when he trains with the armorer. I really like seeing traditional Mandalorian combat used between in the duel between Paz Vizsla and Din, because the only times we really see traditional like one-on-one combat was when we see Gar Saxon face Sabine Wren in Rebels, and we see Darth Maul challenge Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars. And so, yeah, it was really cool. And I did like the fact that Paz Vizsla acknowledges that Tar Vizsla is his ancestor, that he is the descendant of the Mandalorian Jedi, which I thought was really cool. And do you think this is the last time we're seeing Paz?
No.
This is definitely not the last time. I mean, I'm surprised we didn't see his gigantic minigun, but then again, didn't
Like,
really fit the episode. But next time, he's probably going to be there. He's going to have the minigun, and he's gunning for that dark saber.
like I would imagine the only way they could fit it in is like the TF2 heavy polishing his
Oh yeah,
minigun.
but
Like that's the only instance I could see it fitting in this episode, but I see your point.
yeah. Um, as a standalone episode on its own merits, as an episode alone, I give this an 8 out of 10. However, in the context of a wider series and a wider narrative, I have to give this one a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Just because, actually, I'll give it a 7 because
7.
it was overall still enjoyable and it was running parallel to the main plot. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10. But as in the context of a wider narrative and a wider story, it it's really difficult to say this is like a great episode when it's not furthering the plot, especially with the implication that right after Din meets with Fennec Shand, he's going off world again. So hopefully his time with Grogu will be, in my opinion, the best thing that they should do is they off screen it for now, flashback it in season 3.
Right.
I think that would be the best thing.
For me, with this episode highlighting the show's poor pacing, like the first 2 episodes, phenomenal. We got great flashbacks.
Yeah.
And then we get flashbacks spliced with the main plot, and the plot has not progressed. I feel like I have to rescind my 8 out of 10 that I gave to episode 4 last week and replace it with a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 6.5 because it was good, but it wasn't pushing the narrative like I wanted it to. So it's the same thing with it's the same thing. So while this show, in my opinion, is very enjoyable and far more enjoyable, in my opinion, than most of the Marvel MCU, most of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, and on par in enjoyability as Mandalorian season 1 and 2, when it comes to its pacing of the plot, it definitely falls short of the Mandalorians. Definitely falls short of even some of the Marvel MCU shows.
Yeah. Yeah, which it's got 2 episodes to pick itself back up, so who knows?
Yeah, we'll definitely see. But
Maybe they have slightly longer run times, but
yeah, but
we'll see.
final rating, in the context of the series, 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10, and nice job, Bryce Dallas Howard. I did not expect this from you, but pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I mean, her episodes in the past were good, and this is no different.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to our next segment, which is going to be us talking about the new Dragon Ball chapter that came out last week.
Yep.
Came out one day after we aired our last episode, so we could not cover it.
Yeah. So this is going to be Dragon Ball Chapter Episode 80, Gas versus Granola Part 2.
So,
So I will say
mm,
the this chapter, it's not the fighting that really like astounded me. It's more like the growth of power for them, honestly. Like,
yeah,
and we've been saying this for many months now, but doing this monthly, the fights just drag on and on. When you
yeah.
binge the chapters one after the other, it's fine, but oh boy.
Yeah. This is definitely suffering issues that a lot of shonen series, or in my opinion, a lot of manga series suffer, but definitely shonen, which is that these chapters are all written with volumes in mind and not when it's released. I know One Piece suffers from this a lot, where a lot of people feel burnt out because of the weekly chapters and how they feel plot isn't progressing. But then upon rereads in volume format, it's a smooth, seamless transition.
Yeah.
This arc is suffering from that a lot with the fight.
I hate to go 2 segments in a row talking about pacing and how it's not going fast enough for me, but I gotta say it again. This chapter, or no, this arc is not going fast enough for me, and I'm really starting to feel it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of this chapter, we're in a way back at where we were before Granola ate the sensu bean.
Yeah.
Goku and Vegeta are, they're weakened. They
They're
can't do
they're
much.
pretty much out of commission.
Monito, still useless. And Granola is now weakened again.
Yeah.
The only difference now is he has oatmeal attached to him, but he's not, like. And Gas is once again reestablishing himself. No, I am the strongest.
Yeah, no, he's just continually getting stronger and stronger throughout this fight, as is evidenced in the first fight with Goku and Vegeta versus Granola. They're going through the same power boost, and
Um, the one interesting thing is the revelation that all heaters have a berserk-like transformation, which for one is similar to Bojack species and how many people have compared them to Bojack species, but different because Bojack species has full control over themselves when they transform and they change skin color and hair color. Meanwhile, with Gas, presumably his skin color doesn't change, same with his hair color, but instead horns sprout out of his skull.
Do Bojack's race change color when they transform? I always interpreted that color change as the lighting around.
No, it's actually changing color. The two characters that we see are Kogu and Bojack, and when they transform, they are supposed to be green with red hair. It's just that the coloring for the Dragon Ball movies are notoriously inconsistent.
I mean, look at False Super Saiyan. That's our
That was intentional though. That was because when Lord Slug came out, Super Saiyan hadn't debuted in the manga. So Akira Toriyama hadn't finalized the design.
Yeah.
So Fall Super Saiyan gets a pass, but I'm thinking more along the lines of the Broly Second Coming, which is the movie right afterwards, and also for a lot of the Buu arc, where it was very difficult to distinguish between Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2 throughout those movies. It's a similar thing with how the Bojack species is treated.
Okay.
But yeah, so we got to see another step in Alek's plan, which is that Alek always believed Gas was stronger, which now, retroactively, if we go back to when Granola first showed up at the Heater's place after becoming the strongest, and how Alek was like, you probably could still take him. We now know why Elect believed that. Gas has a lot of potential held back.
Yeah.
And this chapter now comes and brings forth that, yeah, Gas was strong enough to fight on par with Granola, but that was not his actual true power.
Yeah.
His real true power is locked behind his transformation.
Which I was kind of hesitant seeing his him going berserk because oh no, now another villain's gonna grow super big and strong. But thankfully, my hesitancy completely went away as soon as as soon as he went back to normal and got full control of his power.
Yeah,
Because it's a trope we've seen in Dragon Ball so many times.
Broly.
Frieza did it the best. Broly did it the second best. We see it again with Cell with middling success.
We
We see
saw
it
Super
with
Android 13 do it.
we saw Zamasu do it.
We saw who was it? Omega Shenron.
Yeah.
We saw Baby.
Which yeah, it's an indication that the fight's almost over. Which I mean, obviously that wasn't the case in this chapter, but I see it so many times that oh the uh the villain is getting super overconfident and they're gonna make themselves appear really big right before they're about to be defeated.
Yeah.
And
If
thankfully, that was not the case in this chapter.
yes. So I really like the little interactions between all the Heater siblings, where Maki and Oil show genuine concern over Alex Gambit. They're like, if he loses his mind, like, what are we gonna do? We
Like,
can't stop him. He's gonna be hurt. He's hurting. The last time he did this, it was bad. Like, they're genuinely afraid of what could happen to Gas. Meanwhile, Alec has full confidence in Gas's abilities.
because he doesn't just grow big for the sake of going big. He actually lost his mind for a good minute there.
Yeah, and he basically just like tore up the battlefield.
Yeah.
Um, I do. So part of me was always afraid that Alec in this arc was gonna drop all pretense and be like, "I never cared about any of my family. I used all of you for absolute power," type shit. I was really afraid they were gonna do that, but I still kind of have that fear. But excuse me, this chapter kind of shows that maybe that's not going to be the case because Elect showed absolute certainty that he knew Gas would overcome his previous weakness. He knew that Gas was the one that should be the strongest in the universe. He absolutely knew that Gas would be able to overcome his previous weaknesses, and that when he does overcome his weaknesses, Gas will be a better man for it.
Yeah. I also kind of like the idea that he just completely drops like the shonen, like if you're on the sidelines, you don't get touched type thing,
Yeah.
and then just completely just goes over and kicks Vegeta halfway across.
Oh yeah, Vegeta was just like sitting there on the sidelines, and then Vegeta just fucking
He just
wrecked.
gets kicked all the way to the horizon.
Yeah, and Goku puts up a fight, which draws a lot of parallels to how Bardock fought Gas.
Yeah, it's actually shown right in the manga panel. Like, oh, like this actually triggers something in Gas's memory,
Yeah,
which makes him go even further into being all berserk. But of course, through
Alec.
Alec, he manages to power back down, and that's like the moment where I was like, okay, we're not going this route where we make the villain big.
Yeah. Something I want to note is that two things actually. One, the move that Bardock uses that supposedly finished off not Granola, finished off Gas, looks very similar to the move that Goku used on Frieza back on Namek when he was flying away. And Frieza, attacked
Oh,
him.
you mean the angry Kamehameha?
Yes,
Yeah.
when he used that. And so it looked very much like that. But another thing is this mystery that they've kind of teased now, which before was just like a little, oh, Gas had a bad thing happen to him here, to, oh, Bardock beat Gas. But now it's really, how did Bardock beat Gas? Like, it's now actually being propped up as a legitimate mystery. How did Bardock beat Gas?
See, I didn't want to bring that up because you can just write that off as like, oh, Goku was this weak that many years ago, so it could be possible Gas was that weak that many years ago too.
So it's definitely the fact that Gas is weak, but the thing is that they seem to imply that Bardock found a specific weakness that allowed him to overcome um, Gas, and so that's what I'm kind of thinking.
I'm also kind of curious as to the amount of like nods to Bardock in this chapter. Like, yeah, he was relevant to the extent that like he protected Granola back in the day,
But also helped slaughter the
but
Corellians.
and also like they're bringing up the Goku Bardock connection more than I'm used to.
Yeah, but it's far more than we're used to because this is the first time Goku has ever learned about his father in any meaningful way.
And more, it's more that this is the most the plot has ever concerned itself with Bardock.
Yeah.
Like we see it in the Broly movie. That's the most we've ever gotten at that point, and then we get this shoved in our face.
Yeah. And while I do not believe this is supposed to set up a Bardock Returns arc, I do not think this is going to happen. I believe Bardock is staying firmly in hell.
I do not want Bardock to rise up from the ground. I want him to stay down there for the rest of the series.
Bardock can come back in like stuff like Super Dragon Ball Heroes. That's fine. Everyone comes back in that show. But let Bardock be dead in this one. This is a show notorious for people coming back all the time, but we do have a select few characters that should stay dead. Bardock, Grandpa Gohan, King Piccolo. Those are characters that should firmly stay dead.
Yes.
Especially Grandpa Gohan. Do not bring him back. Please don't bring him back.
Yeah.
But yeah, the chapter is just it's a fight chapter. The fight choreography was great.
Yes.
Seeing Gas adapt to Granola's usage of instant transmission and Hakai was really good.
And also the multiform technique.
Yes, we did see the return of the multiform technique. However, it's not as good as Cell's.
Yeah.
Cell is still the only character to absolutely perfect the multiform technique. Tien hasn't been able to do it despite it being basically his thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, literally, he calls it the 12-arm technique.
That's a different one. That's when he sprouts arms.
No, that's the forearm technique.
Yeah. Oh, the 12-arm when he uses the multiform and the forearm.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, now I know what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is that. So the fact that he hasn't mastered the multiform. But another thing that's a little curious is it looked like Granola took all the damage of his 7 multiforms at once when they returned to him. But that's different. I'm guessing this has to be a different technique than the multiform he used against Goku, where his clone. Oh, wait, now I understand it. So Granola took all the damage of the multiforms because the multiforms disappeared because of the damage. But when he fought Goku, he made sure the clone disappeared before he actually confronted Goku.
Right.
Okay, that's why he didn't take the damage. Now that clicks. I remember thinking about that during the chapter and the days afterwards, but now saying out loud, I realize that's why he didn't take
because in
damage.
Dragon Ball, it's not like Shadow Clone Jutsu where it's like one puff of smoke and they disappear like they're just a projection. No, it's an actual splitting of your power.
Yeah, and once you actually get hit enough to be knocked out of it, that's when all the pain returns to you.
Right.
But if you end it prematurely, you can circumvent that.
Right.
Okay. That makes more sense, and now that was kind of something that was in the back of my mind that has just been answered by myself, just thinking more. But overall, this chapter,
I feel like
I have to give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I feel like I can't properly judge this chapter outside of its full volume.
Yeah, we could probably do a full arc recap whenever the volume version of this ever comes out, because right now I can't give it anything more than a 6 out of 10, given that while yes, we got character development for Elec, Gas, and the rest of the heaters, and we're getting more hints to something Bardock did, we're back at where we were before the fight even began. I
I
mean,
I'm gonna actually stretch it out. I'm gonna give it a 5.
see, I don't want to give it a 5 because I did enjoy it. Like, the fight scenes, in my opinion, is what saved this chapter for me because the fight choreography was really good and the way Granola and Gas fought each other was smart. And I do appreciate smart fighting. So I give it a 6, but that's as high as I'll ever go.
Yeah,
Like I cannot in good faith give this any more than a 6 out of 10 because we're back at where we started. Gas is once again the strongest, and everyone facing him has had the shit beaten out of them, and Monaito is still fucking useless. In
yeah.
this chapter, his uselessness is even further extended by the fact that he's like, Bardock beat Gas. He must have done something. And they're like, what did he do? He's like, I passed out. Then what the fuck are you here for?
Especially like, and now we're down to all of the sensu beans being used up.
All sensu beans have used up. Monaito is dog shit at healing. He's no Dende, so he can't even heal them properly. We see in this chapter in the background, he's like trying to heal Goku, and it got completely undone the moment Gas literally rocked his shit. So, yeah, I really don't know how they're going to get out of this. I don't see Gas betraying the Heaters because they're literally his siblings, and they have done nothing but show love, care, and support for him throughout this arc, both in flashback and in present day. I cannot see Gas turning on them. I cannot see Elect turning on them, given all that he's done to ensure that his family got into this position. I don't know, especially because
We need some plot developments in this next chapter. Either being an agreement to meet back in a couple months, like we've seen multiple times before, or a solar flare being used to escape the fight. Like one of those two things, and of course this is very this is a very template way to do it. But of course the writers are creative; they can find a way to make the fight end abruptly so that that way they can escape or avoid any further conflict and come back to it later, like we've seen in this series many times before. But I need the fights to end. I need something different. I need variety.
honestly, I need that too. Maybe if they. So, the only two possibilities I can see happening is Oatmeal becomes useful outside of aim assist and support. Like, Oatmeal does something. Something happens with 7-3's body because that's still a thing. 7-3's body is still in possession of Elect, or we get some development on the other 9 questions he asked. He had Maki and Oil ask Zuno.
Yeah.
Because right now, the mysteries, the big 3 mysteries we have moving forward with this arc is what Bardock did to Gas, what's going to happen to 7-3, and what did they ask Zuno.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully we'll get more expansion on that next month. God, monthly chapters. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially because the manga didn't suffer this back in the day because it was a weekly release.
It was a weekly
Which
release.
is why the anime was so loved, was because there was so much action, so much suspense, so much turns in the plot because it had to.
Yeah, I mean,
But
some people kind of panned the anime because the fights were too long,
but
but that's filler, and
that
filler's trash in Dragon Ball's case,
yeah.
except for the driving episode.
But of course Kai fixes that. But the reason that people loved even the Dragon Ball manga is because the plot changes so fast because it's only like a 12-page chapter.
Yeah, I have 3-in-1 volumes of the Dragon Ball manga, and when I read through it,
Like
quickness.
it's snappy, it changes quickly, like with the end of each chapter now in Super, like
You only really get the best out of it when you've read it in volume format.
yeah, or not even that. What I'm getting to is that, like, you know how at the end of each chapter you have the suspenseful moment, like you have to come back next chapter. You get that in the span of one chapter. You get that like feeling of suspensefulness, like the same amount of 4 chapters in the Dragon Ball manga in comparison to Super. So
Mhm.
it has more changes to the pace. It has more suspense. It draws you in more and more over the same period in 4 to 5 chapters that one chapter in Super has.
Yeah. So hopefully we will see. But I also have to wonder because they have said that the arc is coming to a close, and
That
I believe.
has me worried
Yeah, it
because
has me worried because I believe what they're doing is they're pulling the same thing the Moro arc did, where the Moro arc ended, or no, not Moro arc, the Tournament of Power, where the Tournament of Power arc got rushed so it would end coinciding with the Broly movie. I am afraid that this arc will also be rushed to coincide with Superhero.
which sucks because nothing has happened in this arc.
Yeah, like we had great plot progression, we had great character development for Vegeta, but that's kind of where the arc peaked. The arc peaked when Vegeta was gonna have a simultaneous suicide moment with Granola. That was like the peak of the arc, and now it's steadily just started going downhill.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, because the idea of him like not creating his own form, but naming his own form, it was good. Like
yeah,
and it was like
it was him like confronting his previous demons, his sorrow, his guilt, his regret, his growth past the basically the genocidal maniac that he was before.
yeah, like remember when all the fans were talking about, oh, this is a complete progression in his character, and I'm just sitting here in the background like,
All
okay,
according to
I
plan.
know I know the Dragon Ball writers aren't that great, but come on, give them some credit. I know what they're
Yeah, and then of course Vegeta spells it out loud where he's like, "I'm sorry, Lord Beerus, but I can't be that man. I'm not that man anymore. I cannot do this."
Yeah, like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah. Vegeta is a prideful man, and with that pride, he also understands that when he fails.
Yeah. Like, and that's why I loved the first half because it was so smart in its characterization.
Yeah,
And now the plot is plummeting and plummeting as the arc goes on. And I only hope for the best. I really hope that this specific fight ends very soon because it's been going on for about 6 months now.
yeah.
And
What was I gonna say? The other thing is that Granola didn't use his vital sign detection in the fight with Gas.
I don't think he has much to though.
Yeah, part of me was thinking maybe he just couldn't use it
Because think
because
about it,
Gas was
because
always on top of him.
like think about it, I'm pretty sure Gas is speed blitzing him like crazy.
Yeah, especially with Gas learning how to use instant transmission better with every use. So that's probably why. But overall, 6 out of 10. Please plot progress next month.
Please, next month.
I know we have 1 month. Anyways,
All right.
I
So
think that's it for our media segments today, right?
yeah, we have very few media segments this week, so but a lot has developed politically. So let's go ahead and jump into the second half.
Yes. So
So let's talk about Omicron first.
okay, you want to talk about Omicron?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, people everywhere catching Omicron, no end in sight. But we do have some new CDC numbers coming out. Let me just pull up a chart in front of my face so that way I can accurately relay this data because
Okay.
we don't have. We of course, will we have the NBC article that I'm referencing here
Yes.
linked into the stream, so you can tune into that where I'm pulling these numbers from. But I want to really fight the anti-vax sentiment because recently I've had my significant other have a conflict with a relative, and pretty much it has to do with anti-vax sentiment. But yeah, it's been just fighting anti-vax sentiment is so difficult because, of course, my significant other fell sick with COVID, so I haven't seen them in 2 months or 2 weeks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh God, 2 months. That would have been
Yeah.
way too long.
So I do want to relay these numbers because these numbers are important to understand. So these are provided by the CDC, and so I want to provide these. These are both. So first, I'm going to relay hospitalization and then ER and urgent care visits.
Okay.
So actually, ER and urgent care visits would be would be less severe, the hospitalization would be more severe. So, as far as the full vaccination, which is the 2 doses without the booster shot. So, with Delta, we have before 6 months after the full vaccination, Delta actually had and not an efficacy rate. I'm sorry, able to prevent you from visiting the hospital at 86%.
Okay.
But here is the kicker here. With Omicron, that nearly drops to 52%. And then after 6 months, it drops. For Delta, it drops from 86 to 76%. And then with Omicron, it drops from 52 to 30%.
Oh my God.
Now, I do want to preface that these are hospital visits and not infections. So these are not going to relay the efficacy rates. These are just relaying the possibility of you already having the infection, but having to still visit the hospital. But then here's the good news, though.
Okay, I need some good news.
With the booster shot for Delta, you not having to go to the hospital jumps up to 94%.
Okay, that's for Delta, right?
And for Omicron, 82%, which is much better than 38%.
Oh, definitely.
But it's still effective. And of course, there are talks about a 4th shot or a second booster shot coming out.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go over these next numbers here, which are about like hospitalization, which means you stay in there for multiple days and you actually actively have to be treated by nurses there. So pretty much same trends. I'll just lay them out one after the other. So it'll be less than 6 months, more than 6 months, and after the booster, respectively.
Okay.
So for Delta, we have 90% to 81% to 94%, which is, of course, much like having the full booster shot pretty much protects you against Delta for a good chunk. Not completely.
There's always breakthroughs. There will
do
always
not
be breakthrough
mistake,
cases.
Do not mistake my words for saying that the vaccines are 100%. You still have to wear masks. You still have to socially distance.
Yes. First of all, just want to say, every vaccine has the potential of having breakthrough cases.
Actually, I want to bring something up.
Okay.
That a lot of people don't know is that the COVID vaccine is something of a miracle.
Really?
Do you want to know the efficacy rate for a flu shot?
Isn't it like in the 70s?
It's like in the 50s.
50s?
It's in the 50s.
I thought it was in the 70s.
No. The COVID vaccine is a miracle of science. And remember, it came out in less than a year. Around a year. It came out in the span of almost a year of it entering the U.S. It came out less than a year entering the U.S., but not of a year of its existence. Yeah. That's more accurate.
Yeah.
And so,
but also, just for clarity's sake, vaccines like the COVID vaccine were already in development due to the SARS virus that happened back in the early 2000s.
But moving on, for Omicron, the amount the vaccine will prevent you from being hospitalized is 81% to 57%, which is a significant drop, but then jumps up to 90%, which is of course pretty significant.
And this is with the vaccines.
And this is with the booster.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that being with all those stats being relayed, and of course, if you want to view the charts yourselves, they are in the article that we've linked in the chat. But as far as the ability to get, or not the ability to get the vaccines, but as far as the urgency is to take these vaccines, it cannot be relayed more. Because unfortunately, my significant other did not get boosted yet, which was a shame, but it wasn't through hesitancy, it was just through timing.
Yeah, because you need to wait 5 months in between your second vaccine dose and your booster shot, correct?
Yeah, and remember, that was lowered from 8 months a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, and thankfully I got the booster just in time, because I've been dealing with a house full of people with COVID, and it's a miracle I tested negative throughout the entire time.
Yeah,
My
honestly.
my theory is that I did come in contact with COVID, but that booster came in clutch.
Honestly, it probably did. I mean, I've been boosted since October, and I still caught COVID, and I was still like feeling like shit, but I was definitely way better than anyone that didn't have a booster, or worse, didn't have a vaccine.
Yeah. So this is really more an emphasis on why it's important to get these because, and also just the anger that I feel towards anti-vaxxers now that one of them, even though they're related to my significant other, is still attacking them for their beliefs in the vaccine.
And it's kind of, it's just, I can't say, I really can't say how I want to feel because it's overly cruel, and I do not want to be like that to your significant other's family member.
Oh no,
But
I relayed my anger to her, but of course I sat her aside on the phone and said, "Hey, look, I'm behind you with this all the way. Like, don't listen to them because no matter what, you did the right thing in getting the shots."
yeah,
Because while the stats I said do not reflect infection, they reflect hospital visits and hospitalization, there is still a significant drop after 6 months of full vaccination without the booster.
yeah,
And I know I'm saying full vaccination without the booster, but it's the technical term for it, so that's what I'm using.
yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of scary to think that the vaccines were only effective for like 6 months.
That just shows just how devastating this virus has been.
Yeah, and this is not advocacy for skipping out on the vaccines. This is advocacy for continuing to get the booster shots.
Yes, please get the booster. So, first of all, if you don't wear a mask and social distance, start by doing that. Then get the vaccine if you haven't already. And then 5 months later, get the booster. And then continue to wear a mask and properly social
And do it
distance.
soon because most likely there's going to be another booster out and they're going to have another like timetable that you have to wait in order to get it like with
Yeah,
the booster this time where it was a 5 to 8 month wait.
yeah.
But I am now like like I have like before my sentiment towards anti-vaxxers was not really hostile. It was more like
Mhm.
it was like it was more of a kind of like fine, believe what you believe, but I still think you're harming society. And now I'm thinking like, okay, you guys are actively being a detriment to society, and it's infuriating now
Yeah.
because I know people who were like bedridden, and yes,
Me.
yes, I see you raising your hand there. Obviously, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I know people who are bedridden, and for people and for anti-vaxxers to think that there are breakthrough cases and that's a victory for them is absolutely despicable.
Honestly, it is because in a lot of ways it's the celebration of one's suffering or death, which is absolutely horrid. That's disgusting. Like, human suffering should not really ever elicit a sense of joy and triumph in ordinary circumstances. There are extraordinary circumstances, like with the death of Adolf Hitler. I imagine many people derive a bunch of joy from that death. But that's an extraordinary circumstance. When it's ordinary people, especially your own family members, deriving such joy in their pain and suffering is, fuck it, I'll say it, that's fucking evil.
It is.
That's really disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. Especially with like the uber politicization of being anti-vax.
Yeah.
And also like the anti-vax movement caused by Andrew Wakefield wasn't even that big. Like it wasn't an overtly Republican thing, but now it is.
So the thing with Andrew Wakefield is Andrew Wakefield was
Well,
anti-vax because he
he wanted
wanted
to
money.
make because he wanted to make his own vaccine.
Yeah, he wanted his own vaccine,
But
and so
like
he
he didn't
decided
he
to.
didn't overtly create the anti-vax movement, but his actions caused it.
Exactly. And it's kind of funny how many anti-vaxxers are are or were QAnoners, and their whole thing was save the children. When Andrew Wakefield abused many children through his basically through his experimentation on them.
Yeah, because he had about 12 children that he like that there are records that he like heavily like injured some of them.
Yeah, if you want more information about Andrew Wakefield and why he's a shitty person, you should definitely watch H Bomber Guy's video about it because, H Bomber Guy is a phenomenal video essayist.
Or you
But
can also watch the book that he recommends in his video, which is done by is it Brian Deere? I think it
it
is.
is Brian Deere because Brian Deere was the reporter that exposed Andrew Wakefield.
Yeah, it was the Doctor That Fooled the World. I have actually read more than half of it, and it is an amazing read.
Really?
Yeah, it actually dives into like the full details of the experiments that H. Bomber Guy talks about.
Yeah.
And honestly, reading the book after watching his video, it's actually kind of interesting, like to see where he pulls his data from.
Yeah. It's also just kind of really sad to see how he deceived a lot of parents
Oh yeah,
into letting their children be abused in that way. And now, some parents
and
came to have
also the
regrets.
the correlation between like the radicalization of that movement and the radicalization of the anti-vax, or no, of Republicans into anti-vax, because with his movement, like he now is like not now, but he was pulled into flat Earth movements, and now we see Republicans being completely coalesced into the anti-vax movement, and it is frightening.
It is. The name of the H. Bomber Guy video is called Vaccines, A
A
Measured
measured
Response,
response.
which is
Yeah,
part of his A Measured Response series. So definitely would recommend. But the fact that you brought up Flat Earth and how the anti-vax movement was taken into that and how modern Republicans take into the anti-vax video, not video, into the anti-vax movement, I also want to recommend another video which is titled The Search for Flat Earth by Folding Ideas and Folding Ideas, Dan Olson, did a phenomenal video. Oh God, a phenomenal video about flat eartherism and how it ties into conspiracism and specifically QAnon, and how it all comes from a shared sense of there's change, and you don't like the change. It feels unnatural to you, so you try to find a way to simplify the world and simplify why the change is happening, and you kind of use conspiracism as your post hoc justification for the gut feeling you feel.
yeah.
And
As soon as you were going on and on, the first thing that came to mind was post hoc justification.
yeah, I mean, a lot of decisions and a lot of people's morality and decisions are based off of post hoc justifications, not ad hoc justifications. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's good in a lot of cases, and anti-vaxxers are definitely not good for the general well-being of, well, I would say anyone.
Yeah, I'll just say that I have definitely not enjoyed my character arc of moving from just quiet hostility to absolute frustration and anger towards anti-vaxxers.
Yeah, it
Like,
was definitely painful for me as well.
like I don't want to go too in depth to my significant other's house life.
Yeah, I don't think that would be for the best, to be honest.
Yeah, but I'm just in the back of my mind. I'm thinking, how am I going to be able to look at that relative in the face, knowing what I know what happened?
Exactly. It's to put it shortly, it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sad because I know what's going on in their head, and I'm like, and just they're being berated with all of this sentiment, like this is a victory for us. You lost. Weren't you weren't the winner in this scenario, and I'm like,
The tribalism, the very petty tribalism at that.
and how do I fix this? Like, this damages people so much. This
Yeah.
this kind of like you said, petty tribalism. How am I supposed to combat that? Like, I know I've got the facts on my side here, but like when you're like playing chess, like with your like you've got the perfect opening, and then your opponent is a monkey throwing feces at you, how do you win?
For a lot of people, is you don't play chess with a monkey. That's kind of,
That's kind of the point. You can't argue this away.
yeah, you can't win. The biggest thing is that for a lot of these people is that it's almost tantamount to a religion. And as a great philosopher and great writer such as Karl Marx once said, religion is the opium of the people. And what that means is
It's that.
that it gives them, it's like opium. It is something that makes you feel good. It is something that you can become addicted to in terms of over reliance. But at the end of the day, it's something that makes you feel safe. And so to convince someone otherwise, especially with how anti-vax is tied to a lot of other conspiracism and now firmly rooted in a political ideology that encompasses basically half the country, it's very difficult to convince someone that all of that is wrong.
Yeah, especially when that generation was raised on the Red Scare. So when you bring up any Marxian ideology, there's an immediate reaction to it.
Not even Marxian ideology, general, just regular neoliberal policies, neoliberal capitalist ideas sometimes just get outright rejected as communism, which is ridiculous. Like,
Well, I mean, it's because they associate neoliberalism with socialism, which is like, remember, they called Joe Biden a socialist.
yes, the corporate neoliberal Democrat. Definitely a socialist.
I mean, that's just more an advocacy to the intelligentsia um, of their movement, but
I've told you in the past, conservative intelligentsia is an oxymoron. Anyways, we've kind of gone beyond the point about Omicron, but
it was
to bring back home the point, please, we have said it once, we've said it twice, we've said it 1,000 times. If you have not gotten vaccinated, please get vaccinated. If you have not gotten the booster shot, please take the booster shot. Please wear masks and social distance, and you have family members, friends, or loved ones that refuse to do these things, I would highly suggest trying to convince them, and if they do not do so, in the worst case scenario, if it is applicable and if it is possible for you to do so safely, disassociate with these people and give them the ultimatum that they must do this, or you will step out of their lives.
Yeah. And of course, if you're still under the foot of your parents and you have no ability to escape their support because it's not viable for you, then that is the exception to this rule. That is where you will not take our advice.
Exactly.
But if you are able to disconnect with them, say they want to visit their grandkids, that is an instance to where you would not let them do so.
Yeah. I actually read an article the other day of a man who basically he qualified for a heart surgery.
Oh, I've heard of this story, and he got completely put off to the side of the priority list because of the fact that he wasn't vaccinated.
Yeah, because the worst part is that heart surgery is a long, difficult, dangerous, and stressful endeavor for everyone involved. Doctors don't do a lot of them a year for a reason. And this man, who got to the top of the waiting list for a heart, something that is rare, something that is a gift, something that can forever change your life, he rejected.
Or he was rejected.
No, I would say he rejected that opportunity by saying that being anti-vax is worth it.
Wow. Which I kind of have a little bit of hesitation to support that decision, but at the end of the day...
Well, I don't have any hesitation because the reason why is that, one, to receive any type of transplant, you need to be vaccinated already. Reason being is that many of the drugs that they use when they transplant with you is to fight off your body trying to destroy the transplanted organ or limb because it's foreign. So you already have to be vaccinated. But two, it shows a direct unwillingness to listen to a doctor's order, meaning you may just die because you didn't properly take care of yourself post-surgery, meaning that was a waste.
Yeah.
They've been doing this for decades. So I actually don't feel any any sense of, oh, that was bad by the doctors. That's just protocol.
Okay. Yeah, it's a new scenario that I haven't heard of, so it's a little difficult to digest.
Yeah. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's a little intense. But then I read up on it. I'm like, oh, they do this all the time when people were anti-vax before COVID.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh, so it's more of a they only care about it now because it's popular in the current culture war.
Yes. The reason why that article became so popular is because it's a culture war issue. If this was a man refused to get a flu vaccine and thus he didn't get his heart, no one would bat an eye.
Right.
Exactly. Anyways, I think it's time for us to move off of Omicron and move on to the Supreme Court.
All right. So this is a bit of a development that happened recently.
And by recently, we mean today.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is going to be retiring this year.
Yes.
Which, thank God.
Yeah, he's 83.
Which
so,
is too old.
Yeah, far too old. Please leave the bench. We do not want another Ginsburg incident where we have someone old as dirt sits on the bench, keels over, dies, and then we end up with a Republican put on the bench.
Yeah.
So, yes, Stephen Breyer, he's one of the 3 liberal judges on the Supreme Court currently, and it's about time. It's about time. The man's 83. He's lived a long life.
It was about time 10 years ago. Let's be fair.
Okay, yes. It was about time 10 years ago.
Back when they had a supermajority. It was time.
Yeah, he's been on the court for 21 years, so he's 83 now. So he joined the court when he was 62.
Oh my God, they put him on that old?
Yeah, he was 62 when he joined the bench.
Oh God. Knowing what I know now about how to appoint Supreme Court justices, ugh, God, what a horrible strategic pick, honestly.
Honestly, it was, but at the same time, everyone on Supreme Court is old as dirt. I think the youngest one is Amy Coney Barrett.
Amy Coney Barrett, because she's like 47 or something like that.
Yeah, which means we're gonna have her for the rest of our fucking lives.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Stephen Breyer, going off. That's fine. You've done your cause. You've served the country well. Now you get to go retire with your millions and die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
But the more important part of this development is the fact that this will be the Biden administration's opportunity to now appoint someone new to the bench.
And I think I should stress this. It may be their only opportunity.
Yes, this will probably be the only opportunity.
Because they do not have the chutzpah to put on more seats than they currently have. I mean, so we're not going to see an expansion of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to see the expansion. In my opinion, I feel the Supreme Court should be expanded to match all circuits. It's the 13th judicial circuit. There's 13 judicial circuits. I believe we should have 13 Supreme Court justices. But we don't get everything we like.
There should also be term limits.
Oh yeah, in my opinion, judges should not be appointed till death. That's bullshit in my opinion, but whatever.
Because you've heard of Ro Khanna's proposed bill to make Supreme Court terms be 17 years.
To be honest, I don't like that number.
Yeah, I mean 17's a bit long, but it's something.
I would personally say 12. Really? Just so it can end on an election cycle. So, it feels more like we're cleaning things out. Congressmen, in my opinion, both the Congress and the Senate should be 4 years. President can go up to 8 years. Supreme Court, 12 years.
Yeah.
So we get a constant rotation, flushing. It's like your body. Sometimes you need to flush out all the gunk and garbage that's accumulated in your system. It should be, our government should be like that. Because boy, do we have a lot of old garbage in our fucking government.
Yeah, and it is the only arm of our government that is still a Republican majority.
Yeah.
Which will soon be turned over because I have complete and utter lack of faith that we will maintain our majority in the House and Senate.
You think we're going to lose the House?
I
don't think we're going to lose the House. I do think we will lose the Senate.
We're definitely losing the Senate. The House, I think, might be a little more like open for progressives to come in.
Yeah,
But
definitely not the Senate though.
I still think we're gonna lose some of our majority, but not all. Maybe it's gonna be another like half and half scenario this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also you have to think about all of the gerrymandering at this decade.
Oh yeah. But
That is a thing.
But gerrymandering goes both ways. Both Democrats and Republicans do it. So
But
let's not totally say gerrymandering is going to be the reason Democrats lose a majority.
and also to consider the recent developments of voting restrictions
Yes.
that happening in Florida, Georgia, Texas,
Yeah,
everywhere.
but then again, those were states that we kind of already expected to
Oh,
swing.
there's more. There's more.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely more, but the main ones that are doing it are the ones we kind of already expected.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so the big Supreme Court pick that everyone has been talking about, and I definitely will butcher her name. Is it?
Here, let me see it. I'm better with names.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Um. I believe. Let me pull up the name so I don't just absolutely butcher this in every wrong way.
Yeah.
But her name is where is he?
Katanji Brown
Yes,
Jackson.
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yeah.
She is most likely going to be the nominee for the Supreme Court. She would be the first black woman put onto the Supreme Court, which, this is about time considering, how long we've had black people in this country. A black woman entering the Supreme Court would be nice.
Yeah.
She seems to be something that the majority of Democrats would rally around. So yeah, I think the Merrick Garland shift has long passed.
Yeah.
Merrick Garland's time to be a justice long past. He's
And
now
then,
the attorney general. His Justice Department's doing the January 6th thing. I think we definitely need a black person and a young black person at that, because she's relatively young, considering, most Supreme Court justices are old as dirt.
yeah. And then, of course, we've got the conservative response to the seeking out of a female woman. God, I was about to say female woman of color, but that's just no. I was going to say female black woman of color, and that is just okay because
Yeah.
that's just saying it way too repetitively.
Yeah.
So
basically, a woman of color.
Yeah, a woman of color. So the conservative response has been that, of course, the idea that they want to seek out a woman of color is an indication that they are seeking not on suitability, but just to fill a checklist, which is not how anything works.
And also, this is something they've been levying since affirmative action became a thing back in the 80s. They've been levying this even beforehand. It's not based on anything factual. Usually, when someone of color gets picked for these things, it is because they are already qualified to be the job. It's not that you pick a random person. People have to be qualified to do things. You don't get these, diversity hires as basically a quota reach. You don't get those off of randos that were not qualified. Because guess what? They still need to do the job.
Yeah.
And if you suck at your job, you suck. You're going to get fired.
Yeah.
So, with this, I think that she's definitely going to do it. When she first got voted in as a circuit court judge, she got a 53 to 40. That's 53 to 47, right?
Yeah.
She got a 53 to 47, so 50 Democrats and 3 Republicans joined. So definitely something that we can see happen. She's 51 years old, so she's young. She's pretty young, all things considered. And also the fact that we only need 50 Democrats for this to work.
Yes.
So if Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, which we will talk about later, if they can just not be fucking headasses for one day, we will have another liberal on the court.
Yes.
I am currently trying to manifest that they will not be pieces of shit. It's like when Shrek yelled at Donkey in Shrek 2. It's like, listen, Can you not be yourself for 5 minutes? For 5 minutes? That's how I feel towards Mansion and Cinema. Please just stop being your fucking corrupt, rotten selves and let us have this.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that rounds out that segment.
So the next thing we should talk about is the aforementioned corrupt Democratic bitches that they are. Mansion and Cinema.
Whoa. And to to begin, the subject of the segment relays around the attempt to reform the filibuster. So, of course, we were never going to get a complete abolishment of the filibuster, but this was to move away from the 60 vote threshold and to bring back the talking filibuster.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wound up being a 48-52 vote to upkeep the filibuster, with Manchin and Sinema siding with the Republicans to keep the filibuster in place.
Yep. If they had voted along party lines, Vice President Kamala Harris would have came down and been the deciding vote. She would have voted along party lines. She would have voted Democrat, meaning we would have gotten the reforms. But we can't have nice things in this world. Ever. Especially in this fucking country. So here we are with these two jackasses.
Yeah. Yep. And the big reason why we were talking about the filibuster is because the filibuster is what is upholding voting reform.
Not just voting reform. The filibuster is holding up any reform we can have in this fucking country.
Yeah.
Republicans have absolutely stonewalled any attempt at progress, which they've been doing for the better part of 20 years. And so here we are, again, and now we got these two pasty white head asses fucking shit up again. At this point, I'm just tired of this shit. Fuck both of you. You both are horribly corrupt people. Like fucking Manchin is a Republican in all but name. Literally. And then Cinema, she's literally like a girl boss wine mom that has a golden parachute ready for when she gets primaried the next time she gets primaried in the next election, so then she can fuck off and be a corporate stooge. Fuck them. They have no interest at all in helping any sense of their constituency. None of them.
Yeah.
They're literally there power tripping. And at this point, I'm starting to question if the rotating villain is even a thing, because these two are so far up their own asses that I do not think that their rotating villain is even necessary. These people are so fucking despicable. They are so unprincipled, they are so power hungry, they are so corrupt, and they are just absolutely salivating at the fact that they get to stay in the limelight with every boneheaded, dumbass decision that they do. Fuck both of you.
Can we get them off the stream, please? Get their faces off the stream. I don't want to look at them.
Honestly, fuck them. Honestly, I can't say this enough. I'm sick and tired of this shit. I'm sick and tired of the Democrats letting shit like this slide. The party is in absolute disarray. We have no unity. Biden has not been able to unify the party at all. Biden has not been able to pressure Republicans on anything. He's catering to this bipartisan bullshit that has not existed in the better part of 20 years. And of course, he lets these two jackasses slide every time. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, none of you people have been doing shit at all to help rein these people in. What is happening? Why are they allowed to get away with so much bullshit? This is absolutely ridiculous. They've been doing this for over a year. Our first episode on this podcast back in October was about the fucking retards doing shit. And now we're still having them do shit! And it's fucking everything up!
Yeah.
Sorry for the ableism slur, but I absolutely despise these two for what they're doing. They are absolutely stonewalling the party. We voted Biden in because we wanted change and because he was better than Donald Trump. And to his credit, Biden has at least attempted to try some things. But these two jackasses have completely stonewalled any chance of it, and now we're probably going to lose the Senate, have the potential to lose the House. And for what? For these two to line their pockets with more corporate millionaires? I'm just done. I'm fucking done with these two. I cannot wait for Cinema to be primaried. And I know damn well that Joe Manchin is not going to get primaried. And I know he was posturing at potentially going independent, but we all know that that's never going to fucking happen, because the moment he goes independent is the moment that his usefulness to Republicans goes away, and they will absolutely shove someone through in West Virginia to take his place.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I wouldn't mind if someone just straight up mind controlled them to be just party line stooges, because that would be better than this obstructionist bullshit.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just, I'm just, I'm just upset. I'm upset at the fact that we have people like this that know damn well that people are struggling, people are suffering, especially in a time like this, and they decide, well, when was that my problem? Despite this being their literal job. I really hate this, especially because of the fact that senators, congresspeople, any government official, their first job, first and foremost, is to serve us. We are their bosses. They serve us, not the other way around. We don't serve them, they serve us. They should be doing things for the betterment of us. We are the reason they have jobs, not the other way around. So they should be acting like it. And this is something that's been across the board. Democrats and Republicans, progressives, and even like the far right, all of them seem to have lost sight of this fact that you serve us, you serve the people, you should be helping us, you should be doing policies that should help people, not yourselves. If you wanted to help yourself, you wouldn't be here. You would probably be working at some type of corporation where it's perfectly fine and ethical to do that. But no, you're in the government, so your job description is to help us. You aren't doing that. You've never been doing that. For the better part of 100 years, you people have not been doing that. And it needs to fucking end. I'm sick and tired of this shit. I'm sick and tired of having these people come in and absolutely ruin everything in this country. And for what? Short-term gain. There is no long-term gain in any of this. This is short-term as fuck. Even the corporations that lobby for this shit do this for short-term gain. Even though in long-term gain, if they actually cared about helping people, they'd make even more money, because if people had disposable income, they'd be actually be able to pay for extravagancies. And if they pay for the extravagancies, that means that they have time to enjoy those extravagancies, meaning you make more money as a whole because more people would be doing it. But these people can't even do capitalism correctly. They can't do neoliberalism correctly. This is just an absolute farce of a country, an absolute farce of a government. And it's absolutely just completely enraging seeing this happen. It's been happening for over 100 years, and it's probably going to happen for another 100 years to come. And I absolutely hate it. And I know we're going to be stuck in this vicious cycle of lesser evilism because our literal opponent are fucking fascists. The same type of shit that Hitler was. I just can't deal with this shit. I'm fucking done.
Alright, I'll take over from here. But I do want to relay some information that cinema suffered minor, very minor consequences, might as well be a slap on the wrist. Kirsten Sinema received a censure from the Arizona Democrats, which, for those who are not aware, censures pretty much just result in them losing their committee seats. They do not lose their power, they do not lose their spot in office, they just can't participate in committee meetings anymore, which is honestly, like, good on the Arizona Democrats for censuring her, but this is not enough. It's not enough. For her to uphold the filibuster and completely just make the Senate an undemocratic arm of Congress she can just fuck off.
Yeah, honestly. There are worse things that I could say, but good old NSA, CIA, FBI, good old alphabet soup are definitely listening, so yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Fuck you.
Yeah. Which, the fact that she got censured leads me to believe that she will definitely get primaried. But of course, she has her golden parachute.
Yeah,
she's been lining up the fundraising for how long now?
Well, at this point, it's been like what, 6 months?
Yeah, and what's worse is that when she first ran for the Senate,
she pretended to be a progressive.
Yeah, and also she came out as the first bisexual member of Congress.
Exactly.
So for her to completely betray progressives, to betray to betray anyone who believed in anything that she spouted, it's like being stabbed in the back.
Honestly, like, her coming out as a bisexual member of Congress or member of the Senate is fine in my opinion. I think that's perfectly fine.
What's
But
not
the way she weaponized that on her campaign reeks of liberal identity politics, which is something we do not need. And I also resent the fact that she pretended to be a progressive. If she pretended to be a neoliberal and pulled this shit, I would be less upset. But she pretended to be a progressive, someone that's supposed to be better than the ones already in power, someone that is supposed to push back against neoliberalism. And instead, she is literally championing neoliberalism. She is literally running around with a fucking toga with neoliberalism in bright gold letters going across.
I mean, remember when she gave the famous thumbs down?
That was the beginning of the end for me. When I saw her do that, I was like, oh,
Like,
God.
like that's the point where okay, she's a villain and she's having fun being the villain.
Yeah. And
then she weaponized her being a woman in her response, saying that anyone who's attacking her is just attacking a woman in power.
which is once again more liberal identity politics that do in no way work in the service of anyone. It's not real feminism, it's not real advocacy, it's just deflection. It's all deflection with no actual care for the marginalized groups that are a part of that identity.
And it's all just so that way she doesn't have to suffer any consequences for her actions. And now she's upholding the filibuster, a process riddled with racism throughout the history of this country.
Yeah. Not only is it riddled with racism, it's literally riddled with classism. It was literally built. The entire institution of the Senate was built on circumventing the will of the people.
I mean, remember that people didn't vote for the Senate for how long?
I don't even remember.
Like, it took God knows how long for us to even be able to vote for our senators. We could only vote for the House of Representatives.
Yeah, because
at the founding of this country.
Exactly. So I'm just done with these two. I'm done talking about them. Segment over. But since I'm pissed, I do want to now bring up a different topic, one that we didn't schedule, but something that has been pissing me off lately. Let's talk about Russia, Ukraine, because I am absolutely sick and tired of this isolationist bullshit that people are pulling. Listen, if you don't know, the situation between Russia and Ukraine is this. Back in 2014, Russia annexed I don't believe it was a province, the region. I will say the region of Crimea was annexed by Russia. This was a power play by Vladimir Putin to basically say that he could take back the former Soviet bloc whenever he wanted to. And back in 2014, it was a big issue. Ukraine was in an uproar. No one liked this. The citizens of Ukraine back then were absolutely petrified, especially the ones in Crimea. And obviously the justification that Putin used to annex Crimea was the fact that there was a lot of Russians. I believe 65% Russians living inside of Crimea at the time. So it was all well and dandy. No, it's not. If you know anything about the destruction of the country known as Yugoslavia, that is exactly what the Serbs did when they decided to invade Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Croatia, and more. And that led to the absolute destruction of the country formerly known as Yugoslavia, and a massive genocide at that. Anyways, back to Russia. So here we are in the year 2022, and Putin is now not only posturing that he will take over more of Ukraine, he's posturing he'll take over all of Ukraine.
I mean, he has the whole border lined up at this point.
He basically has anything that borders Ukraine and Russia lined with troops, and because Belarus is basically a Russian puppet state at this point, Belarus also is littered with Russian soldiers lining its border against Ukraine. So, and at this point, it's now looking a little bit more dire, because before we thought it was all talk, but now 150,000 troops are lined up against the Ukrainian border with numerous weapons there. And at this point, that is a very expensive move. That is not posturing. That is definitely fuck around and find out type energy, and they're really trying to fuck around right now. Yeah. And so we've now reached this point. For the longest time, Ukraine has wanted to join NATO. NATO was a defensive alliance that was created to be a bulwark to the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact. NATO, as a whole, was basically created to maintain European capitalist hegemonic power. It is shit, in my opinion. I believe NATO should not have existed. I believe that the fact that such a thing existed is really a testament to just how terrible terrible capitalist oligarchs are, and the fact that they didn't even want the idea of a potential alternative political or economic system even coming forth. Mind you, the Soviet Union was not a good state. It was very much autocratic, very much state capitalist, but the idea behind the NATO was to stop communism, which isn't autocratic or state capitalist. But anyways, 21st century, NATO still exists. NATO is still a defensive pact, and several countries that were in the former Soviet bloc, such as Poland and Romania, have joined NATO. And so Ukraine wants in on it. Ukraine is deathly afraid of Russia. Russia has already funneled many puppets to be president, and the previous Russian puppet president was actually ousted by the Ukrainian people. And Russia has been, pretty pissed about that. And so they've been trying to do everything that they can to provoke something out of Ukraine so they can justify invading. And at this point, they've decided to drop all pretext and just do the fucking invasion themselves. So Ukraine wants to go to NATO. NATO has decided, we'll try and support you. You want entry into NATO? We don't mind you being in NATO. We'll try to give you support to deal with this invasion. America has been pretty loud because America is obviously the major superpower in the Western Hemisphere that challenges Russia. The three major superpowers being Russia, China, and the United States. China staying out of it because they have their own problem that could lead to World War III in Taiwan. So right now the U.S. is involved. U.S.'s involvement is this. They are shipping weapons over to the Ukraine. The purpose of this shipping weapons is to make sure that the Russians have the hardest time invading Ukraine if it ever happens. Having more advanced and modern weaponry will make it so that it's not a 2-week blitzkrieg like we saw in Afghanistan, but instead a month, potentially years-long bloody siege throughout the entire country, especially to the capital of Kiev. So, that is the extent of things. NATO troops have been lining up across the eastern bloc, the former Soviet bloc in many NATO-aligned countries such as Poland. Vladimir Putin is saying that he will stop, and I say stop in quotation marks, his march if NATO pulls out of Poland. Now, Poland hates Russia. Poland got fucked by them at the end of World War II. After being occupied by the Nazis, they thought they would get independence. But nope, everything east of East Germany got absolutely absorbed into the Soviet Union, including Poland. Poland has actually been absolutely dicked around for the last century by the various colonial powers of Europe. And once again, it looks like someone is trying to dick them around again. So, here's the playing field right now. You got Ukraine and you got Russia. Russia wants to invade Ukraine basically because Putin wants to prove his dick is big. Ukraine goes to NATO. We're afraid of Russia. Please help us. NATO, which involves many Western European countries and the United States, said, sure, we'll help you. We won't send troops in. We will just send you weapons. And now here comes the problem. There have been many people on the left that are really pulling this isolationist rhetoric, saying that America should stay out of this, that we're only encouraging the situation to get worse, we're supporting neo-Nazis, that we should let Russia do what we did. We violated a treaty with the Soviet Union by moving eastward with NATO, so Russia's justified, and a whole bunch of, in my opinion, bullshit. Here's the straight facts of the situation. Ukraine is a sovereign nation with a right to self-determination and autonomy. Russia has no right to do anything about what Ukraine does within its own borders. If Ukraine wants to join NATO, that is up to the Ukrainian people and the Ukrainian government. Russia, and especially the Russian government, has no say in it. Russia is not Ukraine's parent. Russia is not Ukraine's partner. Russia is its own country that used to be part of one giant country. But you don't see Great Britain talking about doing shit to Canada. No, they're separate countries. So it's the same thing. Now, NATO is notoriously a shit is a shit group. I do not like NATO. I think NATO should have dissolved in 1991 with the fall of the Soviet Union, but alas, they are here. They are not the aggressors. NATO are normally the bad guys, but in this one, they are not the aggressors. NATO was not the one that has been posturing invading Ukraine for the past half decade. At this point, not even half decade, nearly full decade. We're only 2 years removed from the annexation of Crimea. So, my problem comes with this. A lot of people are saying that we should not be arming the Ukrainians because we're only making the situation worse. Problem being, Vladimir Putin is very much on the verge of invading. There are millions of people in Ukraine, and many of them are absolutely piss afraid of what will happen if Russians invade. Because the reality of the situation is, and I will not mince words, is that there will be a lot of death, looting, and raping happening all throughout the Ukrainian country. Every part of it will absolutely be sacked. And it's not something anyone in Ukraine wants to deal with. The annexation of Crimea was absolutely mortifying for people, and they do not want to see it happen. There are many people that currently live on either the Ukrainian-Belarusian border or the Ukrainian-Russian border, and they're absolutely terrified at the Russian army that's currently staring them down. Remember, a Russian army of 150,000 strong. Absolute terror.
All right, I'm going to step in here. But yeah, a lot of people do recognize that the situation that Ukraine is in. I mean, the U.S. has immediately ordered everyone in its is it embassies there or
Yes, the United States Embassy, at least I only know from the United States perspective, the embassy in Ukraine has been completely evacuated.
yeah, like, and also warnings have been laid out to all American citizens currently in Ukraine to get the hell out immediately.
Yes.
So, of course, the U.S. government recognizes that this is a potentially dangerous situation and that they need to get everyone out as quickly as possible.
Yes.
So, sorry to interrupt you. I know I can never match your intensity, but I'm just going to be blunt. My brain melts whenever I hear about foreign policy. So you can continue to take the reins.
I just cannot understand the absolute callousness in what some leftists have been speaking when they speak about the Ukrainian situation. They only seem to think about, in my opinion, it's very hypocritical in a lot of ways, but they speak of it in a very American-centric way. But that this is America versus Russia. America's doing this. America's doing that. Honestly, fuck America. This isn't about America. This is really about the fact there are millions of innocent people that are potentially about to have their country razed to the ground by a nuclear superpower. And reminder, this is one of 3 regions in the world that is supposed to be the powder keg that could ignite World War III. The other 2 being India-Pakistan's border dispute and China and Taiwan. Ukraine and Russia is right now looking to be the thing that could potentially spark World War III, with Russia very much being anti-NATO and very much posturing at the fact that they will not stop at Ukraine. They want to go as far as what they had back during the Soviet Union, meaning up to Germany, including Poland. And so, to that I have to say, how fucking privileged and how fucking dare you disregard the rights and the autonomy of the people living within the Ukrainian borders. How dare you speak with such callousness about the absolute terror that they're experiencing? This is not something where we can sit back and be like, well, America did this, so we shouldn't do that. Bitch, every country's done fucking horrible. We're fucking socialists. We should be opposed to every state in existence, not just America or Russia. All of them. We should be pro-worker and pro-people. And the fact that we are absolutely not taking the pro-people side by trying to say that America's bad for arming the Ukrainians is absolutely ludicrous. Innocent people can die here.
All right, so I think I see what you're saying. You're saying that because of this anti-American sentiment and anti-NATO sentiment, that they are completely ignoring the condition that the Ukrainian people are in, and thus engaging in this completely isolated thought of where we have done so much bad, so thus we cannot interfere.
Yes, which I really despise because every country has done something bad. So to levy that argument would be to levy it against all countries to never do anything.
But I see where you're getting at.
Yeah.
I do see where you're getting at, and we should interfere, honestly.
Like, if we maintain the same mentality that, oh,
Because
because
think
here's
of
what
like
here's
because so many people's lives are at risk, like you said.
yes, like, and I want to bring this back. Think of World War II and think of the Holocaust. Americans were very much isolationists during this time. And can you imagine if we levied the argument that, well, we committed a genocide of the Native Americans and a cultural genocide of the many Africans that we kidnapped during the transatlantic slave trade? We have no right to involve ourselves in World War II and stopping the German genocide of the Jewish people,
Like,
as well as the gypsies, as well as gays and other minority groups. Can you imagine saying that in the 21st century?
I mean, think about it. It's the only time that violence used against, like, from the U.S. has actually been a benefit to the world.
Exactly.
And also remember, the only reason we got involved was because Japan bombed us.
Yes, that was the only reason why. Mind you, in my opinion, I think we would have joined eventually because Winston Churchill was very adamant about us joining for a very long time. And mind you, there were several Americans inside of the United States that were already clamoring to join the war. I mean, for fuck's sake, Captain America first debuted punching Hitler in his first issue before America joined the war.
Yeah.
So to say that people in America didn't want this is an understatement. But back to this. We are now in the 21st century, and there are millions of people's lives on the line. Even if they don't necessarily die, their entire livelihoods and ways of life could be absolutely uprooted and forever distorted and destroyed. Families could be completely displaced. We may see another refugee crisis, which, by the way, many of the other former Soviet bloc countries that are NATO aligned or even aren't NATO aligned don't want Ukrainian refugees in their country. They already were dealing with the many Middle Eastern refugees that came from the various acts of civil war and terrorism and, occupations that happened in the Middle East. They can't handle Ukrainian refugees at this point. And honestly, they shouldn't be, because Ukrainians shouldn't be refugees. They should have their country. They should not have to deal with the fact that they have a nuclear power looming over them like the fucking moon in Ocarina of Time.
Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask, fine.
But yeah, it's to a point where we see people that are in dire need that could quite literally be genocided.
I wouldn't say genocided, but more that they will have their lives uprooted, destroyed, many aspects of their culture potentially absolutely ripped away from them, and there will be a lot of death as well.
Yeah, not to like lower the severity of their point, but
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they are in definitely in the crosspaths of the foreseeing force of the Russian army.
Yeah.
And it's frightening, and as a part of NATO, it should be a part of not just our responsibility, but responsibility of all NATO-aligned countries to help them out.
Yeah. The other thing that I would want to mention about NATO is that, yes, the United States is a part of NATO. The United States was a founding member of NATO. The United States is a world superpower, so yes, they have a lot of sway within a lot of organizations, NATO included. But remember, NATO is a primarily European thing. Many European countries are a part of NATO. This is a European thing. So let's cut the bullshit. Yes, America's involved, but America's not the only voice involved. There are many other countries involved with this. And I think taking this American-centric approach is absolutely missing the forest for the trees. American imperialism is terrible. It's always been terrible. Every form of imperialism has been terrible. But just because that is the case doesn't mean we should absolutely throw away the lives of millions of people to stand principled like, well, I'm consistent in believing that America is bad in all situations. Yes, America's fucking bad in all situations, but, sometimes other people do bad shit and we should call them out on that too. The other thing that I want to bring up is the whole, by arming the Ukrainians, you're just arming neo-Nazis. Yes, it is true. There are neo-Nazi militias within the Ukrainian army, and they are receiving weapons. But I want to give a counterpoint. Russia has Nazis. Germany has Nazis. The United States has Nazis. Great Britain has Nazis. Canada has Nazis. France has Nazis. Everywhere has fucking Nazis in it. And they all are in military positions. Nazis did not die with the death of Berlin during the end of World War II. Nazism is alive and well. Nazis have forever persisted since the end of World War II. They have infiltrated so many different countries. It's an ideology that will probably be here until the heat death of the universe. So to act like, oh, well, you're just funding Nazis is absolutely bullshit considering the other side has Nazis. There are Nazis everywhere. Should the fact that Nazis exist in any country mean that we should not send aid to anyone because we could potentially be helping Nazis?
Honestly,
Nazis are bad. Nazis are terrible. Nazis are obviously a terrible fucking group of people. They're absolutely abhorrent. They're monsters. But are we really gonna be like, well, Ukraine has some Nazis in it, so fuck all the millions of people that could potentially die?
yeah,
Fuck out of here.
pretty much that if that ideology uh, was what's the word I'm thinking of? God, I can't come up with the word I'm thinking of. Give me a second.
Yeah, go for it.
If if that thought process was used across the entirety of the world, all countries would be destabilized. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, and I just
So what? Are we not gonna fund the government just because it's full of Nazis? No.
yeah. So here's the thing. A lot of people are like, well, what? So we should just go to war? No. In my opinion, we should not go to war. I do not think a single American soldier should ever set foot into Ukraine. However, I do believe that by arming Ukraine, we are making the likelihood of invasion into Ukraine less likely, meaning that if it's less likely, less people will die. Maybe, just maybe, Putin will do the calculus and he'll realize that with the amount of weapons that are being stockpiled within Ukraine, the amount of forces that he has may not be enough, and maybe, just maybe, the posturing didn't work this time. And he'll go back to the drawing board, and maybe we'll have another 6 years of peace before the inevitable return. But for God's sake, we're supposed to be anti war, meaning we should be doing things to prevent war. And that includes giving armaments to people to threaten the people trying to invade them. That is the anti war sentiment. To avoid war in Ukraine, you must make sure Ukraine is powerful enough for people to not want to go to war with them. That's the anti war take. That is it. To prevent war, you must make sure that other countries are not viable options for war. That is it. Especially when we're this close. And that's not even to mention the fact that this could spark a powder keg across the entire planet, where other countries will now believe that, well, this is happening, so I'm going to start screwing with the neighbors that I've held resentment for, and they start invading each other, and we're back to World War I era, where because one country invaded another, other countries declared war because of their treaties, and then the entire world gets engulfed in a massive fucking war. Except this time we have nuclear weapons. So, of course, the inevitable conclusion will be the cleansing light of nuclear hellfire as it rains across this planet and purges every life form across the earth.
Yeah.
I'm done. I needed to rant about that. I was already pissed about Mansion in Cinema, but because I was pissed, I wanted to rant about that because that was really upsetting, especially last night, seeing certain high-profile leftist commentators basically saying, fuck all, fuck you, Ukrainian people, you just have to deal with this yourself, knowing damn well the Russians will roll over them.
I definitely think before we take our next segment, let's take a few seconds to recover. Again,
Yeah.
I can never match your intensity when it comes to that stuff. I tried to peek my way in with my commentary as much as I could, but obviously
Yeah.
you were much more knowledgeable on this than I was. And also because I didn't have a chance to read up on this segment because
It was not planned. It was not a planned segment. This was probably going to be something that we're going to discuss next week, but
most likely there will be developments that come.
yes, but I saw that we had time and I was already angry and I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Yeah. Have you actually seen like the stock market's response to the whole Ukraine-Russia situation?
I have not. How
Oh,
bad is it?
in one day it plummeted 1,000 points.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
War is not necessarily good for stock markets in a lot of cases.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Especially,
Whenever I see Russia go to war with Ukraine, the first thing I think of is how will this impact the economy?
no. What you should be thinking is, would this be good for crypto?
Oh, yeah.
Can I shill NFTs to Ukraine in this in this trying time? Like,
Oh my.
how would my apes fare? How would my bored ape fare during this?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
how would they fare if war happened? Like, maybe I could put in some you know, I don't know, fucking MILF token or whatever.
uh, well, I think that's the levity we needed. Thank you for supporting us. We just received your chat. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. We do appreciate all of you. We appreciate every viewer that watches these live, anyone that listens on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Facebook, or watches the segments individually. I do want to thank all of you because you all are very much the things that give us the opportunity to do what we do. And if you want to support us more, please don't forget to like us on social media, like, comment, and subscribe on every video. And if you really want to, you can also support us on Anchor by becoming a supporter of us and giving us a donation. Any amount is great, but once again, we are in COVID, so I know money is tight, so please do not donate if you do not have the means to do so.
Yeah. I'm also very happy to announce we've just crossed the 25 subscriber threshold.
Yes, we crossed 25 subscribers on YouTube, which is great. Really happy to see that because, growth is growth.
Yep.
And
And we'll get to monetization eventually.
yes, we definitely will. It's long, it's arduous, but we will get there. I am confident about that.
All right. Well, with all of the levity rising in us once again, let's go ahead and move on to our final segment.
So our final segment is not really political. It's more of a lifestyle thing, something in vein of when we talked about social atomization and the Great Replacement, but not as
Not
depressing.
not great replacement, great resignation.
Oh God! Oh God! Great resignation! Great resignation!
Please, for the love of God, please take that back.
I meant great resignation, not great replacement. Dear God, I meant great resignation.
Please edit that out. Please, for the love of God, edit that out.
I probably can't because of how I said it.
All right.
Anyways,
so
the topic that we want to talk about is dating.
And not only dating, but dating from the perspective of leftist men.
I actually don't even want to specify leftist men. I want to talk about men in general, both cisgendered and transgendered men, and anyone that identifies as masculine presenting. I think this is something that needs to be talked about because, we're seeing a bit of a rise again in the manosphere pickup artist types, the red pillars. You know the groups that we're talking about, the ones that kind of prey on the insecurities of men, and specifically the insecurities about themselves in regards to women.
And before we start, I feel like we should get our perspectives in front of you guys, so that way you can understand where both of us are coming through. I grew up in a mildly conservative household, so my opinion is strictly monogamous. I'm currently in a 2.5 year long relationship, and we've stayed monogamous. I don't really sleep with other people outside of relationships, so I have a more traditional view of relationships.
Meanwhile, for myself, I grew up in a more liberal household, and while I have definitely been in serious relationships, many of my sexual encounters with the opposite sex has been within the context of hookups or friends with benefits or things along those lines. But I've also had experience in relationships. And also for clarity, I am a heterosexual male, not heterosexual, heteroflexible. God, I am fucking up words. I'm heteroflexible, and for those that don't know what heteroflexible is basically you are majority attracted to women, but you can be attracted to men as well. And for me, I'm more attracted to femininity as a whole, so that includes feminine women and feminine men.
Yeah.
And for Sovereign?
And of course, I am just a heterosexual male. I am only attracted to women.
And that's fine. And also, we're both cisgendered.
Yes.
So, to start, I kind of wanted to talk about basically something we talked about when we talk about social atomization, but as a guy, how do you meet girls?
And
Specifically, girls that you may want to have a prospective relationship with.
so, obviously, our perspectives are a little different because my interactions when it comes to people that I date, it's mostly personal. And unfortunately for that, that kind of interaction nowadays is kind of limited to college and high
Yeah,
school because that is the only real like place where you can feel a sense of community with other people. Back in the past, that used to be church. It used to be places to gather socially, but nowadays we're not seeing that more and more.
yeah. So it's definitely been difficult, and with the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's made it even more difficult to meet people. But it's not impossible.
It's not.
So there are many ways. The first option is, well, dating apps. We live in the 21st century. We all have smartphones. We know apps are a thing, and dating apps are plentiful. But the main dating apps that you normally see are Tinder, Bumble, OkCupid, Hinge, Facebook dating, things like that. So, for guys that are on dating apps, what should you do? Like, what should you do? What makes girls want to talk to you on a dating app? So, in my personal experience, the best way to get interactions with women on dating apps is one, to have pictures of yourself in multiple scenarios. And by multiple scenarios, I mean, say you're out. Say you're out and you look nice one day. You have a good outfit on, you look nice, you feel a little bit confident in yourself. Just snap a picture of yourself or have someone snap a picture of you. With it like and usually when you feel like good about yourself, you have a more genuine smile. It doesn't look as forced, it looks natural. And those types of pictures do really well because it shows you at your best. It shows you when you're yourself at your best, when you feel at somewhat at peace with yourself.
And on top of that, you should also add pictures of you with multiple people because that also shows that I know it's very strange because it can lead to a lot of like
Miscommunication about which person you are.
yeah, but of course with the advent of multiple pictures being put in, that can be avoided somewhat. But the whole idea is that you interact with other people just as well.
Exactly.
Like you are fun to be around, you communicate well with others. That's what that portrays.
Yes, that is definitely it. I would recommend that if you do have a dating profile and you do have a picture of multiple people, limit it to one.
Yes.
Not multiple, because that would then, to a lot of people, look like you are embarrassed about how you look and you're trying to obfuscate that fact. So limit it to only one. Other pictures that you should have is pictures of you doing a hobby that you like, whatever that hobby may be, whether it's hiking, whether it's video games, whether it's chess, whether it's knitting, whether it's board games, whatever it may be. Have a picture of you doing that. And obviously, the picture needs to be a bit natural. Obviously, stage pictures are a lot more obvious. But, just have a picture of you doing those things because that speaks more about what you like than anything you could write down. Pictures really can say 1,000 words.
And also to not generally just for dating profiles, but for photo taking in general,
Yeah.
always take pictures above eye level. Because if you take it like at shoulder level or even at chest level, it shows an angle that no one is used to, and that not only like that. The big thing about that is just it lowers your self confidence because it's not something that you're used to seeing, and it just shows you at kind of a not less desirable but less familiar picture
It's
of
an
yourself.
unnatural angle because when you meet people, you meet them at eye level,
Yeah.
or if they're taller, you meet them at eye level. And so you really get to see the best parts of you. So when you take pictures, you should do above eye level because of how cameras work. It will properly look. It will look closer to how you look when someone looks at you in person.
Yes, and that's mostly just as a confidence booster because, yeah, photo taking. You take a look at all of the like all the like what you perceive as imperfections, not actual imperfections, because no one is imperfect.
No one's perfect.
No one is imperfect. We're all significant in our own way.
You said no one is imperfect.
Yes.
But we are imperfect.
Okay. No, you know what I'm trying to
Yes,
get at,
I know what you're trying to say, but
you know what I'm trying to get
I was a little confused at first.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
My mind doesn't know what it's trying to say.
Trust me, I am one that struggles with words all the time. But
But yes, you doing that is a great self-confidence booster, and it also helps people see you for how they are going to be.
exactly. Another thing is when it comes to pictures, don't use too hard filters. Don't use filters that end up distorting how you look. Surprisingly, many filters distort things about you, whether it's your skin tone, whether it's the shape of different aspects of your face, or really just the entire structure of your face. You want to lean away from that because those minor changes can do a lot in terms of how someone perceives you as a profile and then how they perceive you as a person. So I would limit filter usage. If you are to use a filter, use it sparingly and then make sure the filter is not something that drastically distorts how you look body-wise or facially.
Right.
Another thing is that you should have at least one picture showing your body just so people can know what you look like in your totality. Yes, you may not be comfortable with your body, and you may not be the most confident because you're not the most muscular, or you have like a bit of a belly, or you just feel that there are just parts of you that are unattractive or undesirable. But at the end of the day, if you are going to meet someone off of a dating app, they're going to see you regardless. You can't show up to a date and like hide the lower half of your body. They're going to see you anyway. So you might as well just own it. You might as well just have the picture of you as you are. Obviously, don't take a picture of yourself where you're visibly uncomfortable. Don't take a picture that you don't feel like you look good.
Like when
But
you say body, you mean like full portrait,
yeah,
not like go out and take a picture of yourself out at the beach shirtless,
yeah,
but like show like you like fully comfortable, but don't do it just from chest high.
yeah,
Take maybe like waist up.
yeah. Do pictures like that. Another thing, this is something that I've heard from numerous women, is that photos with animals are good. However, hunting pictures are generally a turnoff for a lot of people. Not for all women, because not all women are the same. Women are not a monolith. So some women are into that. But from what I've seen from a lot of different women, both in my own personal life and across the internet, hunting pictures, whether it be fishing or just hunting game, those pictures don't necessarily fly well. You in hunting gear or in a fishing outfit could work, but the dead animal itself seems to be the thing that turns people off. So I would recommend avoiding that. Those pictures are better suited for like your Instagram, your Facebook, not as profile pictures, but just as things that post because those give more insight into just who you are and less about what you want to put forward as the first thing people recognize about you. Because when you think about it, when you're on a dating app, you're trying to show the best parts of yourself that you want people to notice on a first go around. And you with a dead animal doesn't necessarily send the right message as your best part. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
It doesn't really. So I would avoid the hunting, fishing pictures. I would more focus on pictures of yourself, pictures of you with people, and pictures of your hobbies. Specifically, you doing the hobby. As for your bio itself, your bio should be, it should give some insight into who you are. Like a brief description of like what you're for first of all, what you are looking for should definitely be in there. Whether it's something casual, whether it's something serious, whether you want exclusivity, whether you are monogamous, whether you are polyamorous, whether you are someone that is into more kink things, all those things usually in some way or another should be conveyed, not obviously in a lot of overt ways, but they should be conveyed so when the people see your profile, they kind of know what you're about so they can gauge whether they're looking for a similar thing.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I'm kind of unknowledgeable when it comes to dating apps, so you're going to have to take the lead on
Yeah. Oh,
that.
right.
I
I don't think Sovereign has ever used a dating app.
nope.
Yeah.
I'm just giving all the knowledge that I've heard from osmosis.
Okay. So,
Yeah, but honestly, the we can move off from dating apps when it comes to actual communication. That's where I think I can have a little bit more of an input, and
yeah.
I think that's where more of our perspective as leftists do come in.
So, a big thing is that when it comes to dating, is that dating, like any prolonged interaction with another person, involves a lot of a lot of communications and a lot of gauging boundaries.
Yeah.
So, in my personal opinion, when it comes to a date, you should never be overly forward with certain things such as physicality unless it's unless it's a hookup and both of you know it's a hookup going ahead of time, and when it happens you two like give each other consent. Go for it. Do whatever the hell you want, as long as you two know what you want and you are confident in what you're doing and you both consent. Have at it. If it's just hookups you want, then just always make sure that you protect yourself, your partner is protecting themselves, and that you have consent. And you always have the right to say no whenever.
Even
Whether,
after you say yes, you can still say no.
yes, consent is not something that you give and cannot rescind. Consent is always something that you can rescind. And if your partner is a generally good human being, they will respect that.
Yeah.
So I will say that for hookups, generally, once you've met someone that wants to hook up with you, you've pretty much done most of the work.
Yeah.
Once they do come over, and once they do come over, it's more about just general social, like asking them how they are, making sure that they're comfortable. But as soon as you get consent and it's enthusiastic consent, something like a yes or a sure or a yeah, and when you get things like that, you're usually good to go. But
Yeah.
always be cognizant of your partner's state and make sure that they're always fine, because if they're not fine, you should stop and communicate.
Also, please detect if there's any hesitancy in their voice. Like if they give a reluctant yes, like please ask more questions because
It
it shows like they gave consent technically, but there's still some doubt deep down, and that can always be like that's not the most respectful thing to do.
And there's ways to go about it that doesn't kill the mood like some people normally complain about. When someone says, like, say you ask someone, like, do you want to, like, go to my room? And with the implication being that you two are going to have sex, and they give kind of a half hearted yes, just stop for a second and say, like, are you sure? You, like, say, are you sure? You don't have to if you don't want to. Make it so that they feel like they can leave if they don't feel comfortable. So, one thing that you should do is your body language should be welcoming. You should not in any way have yourself positioned in front of any exits.
Yeah.
That is definitely, even if you're not intending to, that makes someone feel trapped subconsciously and makes them more likely to go along with saying yes to things that they may not be comfortable with because they feel they can't get away.
Yeah,
So
definitely do not convey any manipulation whatsoever. Or
even if you're not intending to,
yeah,
it's always
definitely
good to keep,
avoid anything that could convey that you are trying to manipulate.
or not just manipulate them, but give them the sense that they may not be safe around you.
Right.
So definitely keep your body language to, keep your body language in a very general, like, comfortable way. Something, just show that you're relaxed. You're not someone that is on edge or someone that will erupt if a rejection comes your way.
Right.
The last thing you want is to get angry at the person that rejects you. Because you know what? They may reject you today, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll reject you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if you handle your rejection well, you may have a second shot with this person, because there are multiple reasons for someone rejecting you. And some of the times it has nothing to do with you personally. So you being understanding and you being fine with being rejected, even though it does hurt, and it does hurt, and it's okay to feel hurt, but allowing yourself to feel that hurt away from the person allows them to, one, be like, okay, well, I didn't do it with that guy, but he was really nice and respectful, and I do kind of like him. I may not have been ready for it. And then maybe later on down the line, you get a second chance, and it does happen.
Right.
Yay! But
But
when it comes to rejection, definitely be prepared for it. In my experience, always be prepared to go away without anything. The best thing that you should expect on dates or hookups or anything is to be treated as a person with respect. That should be your only expectation. You could also maybe have the expectation of just generally enjoying yourself, but any type of, oh, I expect to kiss this person or I expect to go to their place and cuddle them and kiss them or have sex. No, bad expectations because you're not entitled to that. And vice versa, they are not entitled to that from you. You don't have to give those things if you don't feel comfortable with it. A lot of guys do get put in situations where the people that they're romantically interested in pressure them into doing things that they're not comfortable with. And because they have the added pressure of being men, and thus they are expected to take things on the chin, it makes it all the more troublesome. Not troublesome, that's inappropriate language. All the more traumatic, I would say, because these instances can be traumatic. So, yeah. So, moral of the story, take rejection well, because it's not your only shot with that person. And even if it is your only shot, it it being able to control yourself and not blow up at people is just better building of character.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And really, when you talk to women, it's like women really like understand like when you're trying to like get up on them.
Yeah.
Like they know to laugh at men's jokes even if they're really bad.
Yeah, it's something they're socialized to do unfairly, might
Yeah.
I add.
Yes, very unfairly. But they are very keen to things that like could signal like, okay, this guy's being super flirty. Like, just please be aware that they are looking out for these things, and would be in your best interest to not be like super flirty with them, because how I approach relationships is
Mhm.
I see it as an evolution of friendship.
Yeah.
Like it's the next step up.
Yeah, I
So
could see that perspective.
so I don't see it as, oh, it's something entirely different. Like I still think of my significant other as one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, she's the only best friend I have sex with, sure. But you get the idea. It's no different.
Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
relationship that you have with another person at the end of the day. It's nothing different, so you should treat them different.
Yeah. One thing that I will say is that if you are just naturally a flirty person, just when you do flirt, because sometimes flirting is unintentional, just make sure that when you do so, you're aware of your person's body language. I know from personal experience that there have been times where I thought I was flirting, but I did not pay attention to the person's body language, so in turn, it was not flirting.
Yeah.
Or it did not come across as that upon first,
Yeah.
you know.
And acting super macho machismo is just really cringy at the end of the day because we all know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
we all know what you're trying to accomplish, and it's not it's not flattering. It doesn't work.
like it can work for some people, but it's not going to work for a lot of people. The best thing to do is, I will not say be yourself, because that is counterintuitive and that does not get to the root of the problem. The best thing that you should be is the best version of yourself. Because what if being yourself right now means being anxiety ridden and insecure and just generally unstable? Maybe you're not in a good position money wise. And so being yourself means that you're constantly worried about overspending or constantly worried about, do you have enough to pay for to eat or to sleep and all those different things. So that's not necessarily a good thing when it comes to dating. So not to say that you shouldn't date if you are in those situations, but recognize your mental state. And so when you do go on a date with someone, you're the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, you may still have the lingering fears about money, but it's not something that's at the forefront of yourself like it could be in other situations.
Right.
One thing that I wanted to mention is just in general when it comes to interacting with women, is they are very much a lot like men, more alike than people would want to admit.
Right.
So when a lot of people are like, oh, men want sex and women want resources, that's bullshit.
Like,
people want both. Women want sex as much as men want sex. The difference being is that women have been socialized to not overtly say that, wrongfully, I might add, but also because of the fact that expressing it in some context may be dangerous to them physically. Some people may take a willingness, not willingness. Some people may take openness about sex to mean willingness to have sex with anyone, which is not the same. And
Yeah.
so definitely get rid of the idea in your mind that women aren't into sex. Women love sex because men love sex because humans love sex. Sex is fun. Sex is natural. Sex is necessary for the prolonging of our species.
Yeah. And the next thing I do want to talk about is like stuff that happens more deep into a relationship, say
Yeah.
a few months in, because recently I've had my of course I talked about this in our COVID segment, but of course I had my significant other talk to me about how she was berated by her family and like she wasn't like she didn't know she could come to me for support, and
Mhm.
I feel like that's very like it's a gives me a weird outlook on society
Yeah.
because it shows that maybe previous generations don't really talk to each other about their feelings like previous generation couples,
Yeah.
which I talked to her about these things and or no, I talked to her to come to me about these things and she's genuinely relieved like it's out of the norm and like this should not be the case.
Yeah. And
And
it really shouldn't.
and this comes to what we always talk about, not just us, but everyone when it comes to open communication always strengthens a relationship no matter what.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
100% agree.
Like if you are suffering from anxiety, please take 5 minutes to like
Collect yourself.
collect yourself and then please go to not just your significant other, but talk to someone because the last thing you need to do is bottle up your emotions. Not to say that I'm a mental health expert, so some of this might not be applicable to all scenarios, but talking to someone makes things easier to process.
Yes. And for guys, it goes twofold. For one, you can be vulnerable about issues that you have with your significant other. That is something that I feel you are entitled to when you enter a relationship with someone. The right to be vulnerable around them. And vice versa, they have the right to be vulnerable around you. And so don't be afraid. If something's really bothering you, talk to your partner about it.
I mean,
You'd be surprised at how much it means to someone when you are able to confide very personal issues to them. It means that you trust them. And that sense of trust is a privilege for a lot of people. And your partner will very much feel privileged to be a person that they can like be reliable for. And like the idea that women don't like you when you're emotional is not accurate. Yes, there are many toxic women out there that do chide men for being emotional, but they're toxic. They are not the norm.
thus, they are not someone you should really be dating.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, they your partner should be your everything. They should be your support. They should be the person that props you up. Not only is that their job to do that to you, it is your job to do that to them.
Yeah, I will say that your partner shouldn't be the only one in these situations, but your partner should be an integral part of
Yeah.
it.
For example, I was open to my partner about how recently uh, my sibling caught COVID, and the reason that I was worried was because 2 years before he caught pneumonia.
Yeah,
So I was very scared.
and it's very scary, but I feel like your partner definitely appreciated the fact that you were able to be vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah,
One thing that I want to also mention is that when it comes to being on the receiving end, meaning your partner is coming to you about something, I know a lot of men have been, and once again, wrongfully socialized that every problem must be immediately solved and that you must take action. That's not always the case. I know there's definitely many men that have felt that when they talk about a problem, they don't necessarily want it fixed, they just want to talk about it. your partner is probably no different. Sometimes your partner just needs to vent and they just need to be heard and they want you to just say, man, I'm really sorry that happened to you. That really sucks.
Yeah.
That would be, that'd be something nice. Like, that'd be something that they would
And
like to hear. And things like that, in my opinion, go a lot further than puffing your chest out and being like, well, I'll handle it. Because not every problem someone comes to you with, especially in a romantic relationship, is something that necessarily needs to be handled.
yeah, like say like your significant other comes to you and says that their like their uncle has come down with a life-threatening illness.
Mhm.
Like you can't fix that yourself, but what can you do in that scenario? Just listen. Just be there for them. Be their shoulder to cry on. Tell them just that it's going to be okay.
Mhm.
Because maybe that's just what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you are not in power to fix that problem for them, but maybe that's not what they're asking for.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could just immediately eradicate their illness, please do that and report yourself to Area 51, please.
Yeah.
But
Wait, what? No! Don't go to the feds! If you have superpowers to heal people, stay far away from the feds! What is wrong with you?
jokes aside, but really, maybe all that your partner wants is just know that you're there for them.
Yeah.
I know I've been in a situation like that, and of course, I felt powerless, and I didn't want to because I was not the one suffering at the time.
Yeah.
So it was very strange because I knew I shouldn't be the one feeling like emotional distress because I had no right to feel that. But ultimately, it is upon you to help make them feel better.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to mention that I feel definitely gets lampshaded when we talk about this. It's okay to feel that dating is hard. Because it is. And I will say this, dating is hard as a man. It's also hard as a woman, but it's harder in different ways. Dating as a man means a lot of times you have to put yourself out there as someone that you're not. You have to put on this facade that you really aren't because you feel that's what's going to get you the most attention, because you feel otherwise you're invisible, because there's millions of other guys out there pining for the affection of women. What makes you stand out? And yeah, that can be very disheartening and very demoralizing, especially because us as guys, a lot of times our masculinity is determined by our relationship with women, specifically our romantic and sexual relationships. So it does get very difficult to have to feel like you're lesser because you're not successful with women. And you know what? That happens. And even though, yeah, men have privileges in a lot of ways, that should not invalidate the struggles that we have as men. Dating sucks.
Especially nowadays where we, again, don't have that sense of community to meet.
Exactly. Like, it's okay to be upset sometimes because you're not dating someone. Obviously, don't take it out on anyone, but you know what? It's okay to feel like, man, this is really hard and I just don't know what I'm doing and it's really upsetting. That's okay to feel. Yeah, I will say this. Some women are bitches. Some of them will treat you terribly and they will be toxic and they won't be good for you. That is fine. It's not a mark against you because someone treated you poorly. Once again, like, they're toxic. They're not the majority, but they are out there. And it is something that does suck. I know there's probably a lot of guys that have been on dates with women where the woman wasn't, good as a person and was kind of shitty and made them feel shitty, but they kind of felt they had no way of properly complaining about that without being labeled as some type of misogynist. And you're not. Bad people exist of all genders, including women. And bad people will treat all types of people badly, like men. So it's completely fine. to have a shitty date, come home, and be a bit upset because your date treated you like shit, or they insulted you, or they made you feel lesser. That's fine. And you should be allowed to vent that frustration. You should be allowed to be upset when, someone hurts you. When it comes to dating, I feel a lot of men a lot of are denied a lot of opportunities to say their piece about why dating is hard for them. And I want to say that, you know what? Sometimes, yeah, sometimes bitches are bitches. And
Yeah,
they're gonna be bitches.
and
And
if
it's gonna fucking suck.
and
That's not an unrealistic thing to say. It's unrealistic to say all women are like that because no group is a monolith. But it is completely fine to acknowledge that some women are shitty people and will treat you like shit. That is fine.
yeah, the point where it does lead into misogyny is when you have a bad date and then you treat that woman as the monolith of all women. That's when no, you're just a horrible person.
Yeah. Or let's
Which
not go too far. A lot of people are sexist in ways that doesn't necessarily make them a horrible person. It's how they act with that sexism specifically.
right,
So, yeah. It's tough. It really is tough. And, I really cannot stress enough that dating as a man has its own difficulties that women will never understand. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. And it's not a bad thing to say that. It's
yeah,
not a bad thing to acknowledge that things are different for men than they are for women. It is not bad to acknowledge that you will have shitty experiences with women and they will treat you badly and it will be not your fault. It is not bad to feel that, dating sucks. But at the same time, dating can be fun. It allows you to meet people, allows you to experience things that you may not have experienced. It allows you to see new perspectives. But most importantly, it allows you to start relationships with people, both romantic or otherwise. And humans, being the social creatures that we are, that's usually some of the best things to ever come out of dating is the relationships that you can get from it. Because relationships are fulfilling in their own ways that other forms of just interaction with people or with environments just don't give off.
right. And it should be said, of course, that all of these problems that men suffer, whether it be the inability to express themselves or the difficulties that they suffer because of them, are all problems that feminism or the abolishment of the patriarchy could fix. Unfortunately, we are not in the scenario where we can benefit from that
Yeah.
yet.
But also, but another thing is that don't take it when someone mentions patriarchy as it's your fault. Because it's not. The patriarchy is not a monolith. Because just like women, men are not monoliths. We know we're not monoliths. We know we're individuals. Patriarchy does not mean men bad. It really, patriarchy is just a system. It
Yeah,
is not controlled by any one group of people, and it never has been. So don't feel guilty when someone brings up the patriarchy. Because you know what? You're not the patriarchy. You're just a dude. And that's fine.
yeah,
Because, yeah, I mean, if anyone tries to blame you for the woes of the patriarchy as an individual, don't necessarily disregard it immediately as a crock of shit, but don't necessarily just take it and be like, oh, I guess it's true. Because it's a lot more complicated than that. And that's probably something we'll get in on a different segment. But we want to end off this segment by just saying that, yeah, dating sucks, but there are ways to go about it. There are ways to improve your chances. There's ways to make yourself feel safe and ways to have fun.
yes.
This probably wasn't the most
Structured.
structured, yes, not the most structured segment, but I thought it was something that we should talk about.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting because both of us do have different perspectives when it comes to this.
Yeah,
Whereas I've never slept around or been on a dating app and have more traditional views on a relationship, but still our ideas about how it comes to communication and uh, just everything else are still similar at the end of it.
yeah. I mean, I come from the perspective of someone that has slept around and someone that that has been in relationships has not been in as consistent or steady relationships compared to sovereigns.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's everything we have to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
It was definitely a good segment to end off of.
Yeah, especially after the last two were infuriating, to say the least.
Yeah. But thank you for all of you that watched. I really appreciate. I mean, not just I. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're definitely happy to reach the 25 sub milestone for sure. Definitely hoping that these videos, while these are probably our most passionate that we've been, we definitely are hoping for a lot of growth in the future.
Yes. If you haven't seen already on our Moon Knight video, but we now have an opening and an outro with
And
its own music.
and we also have put in thumbnail borders on our videos to make them look a little more professional.
Exactly, which is awesome. So yeah, look forward to just more improvements down the line, and let's hit the 50 subscriber milestone.
Yes, let's definitely. Maybe even we can get in the triple digits by the end of the year.
Yeah, end of 2022, getting into
Actually,
triple digits. I think that's something reasonable.
yeah.
Yeah, getting 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the end of the episode. I'm Shiny.
I'm Sovereign, and of course you can catch us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and we hope you